It is heavy.
It's very heavy.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's so cool. Thank you.
That'd be
Okay, thank
pumping
you.
diamonds instead of iron.
Hey, it's an extra pound of weight.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, April 1st. If we will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Nick Moronis.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if we could please have a few moments of silence for Norris Eugene Mendenhall, better known as Whitey to all of us. Please be seated. I think there's a proclamation in order, and council member.
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was all excited. Roll call.
Councilmember De La Rosa.
Here.
Councilmember Ponce.
Here.
Councilmember Schickling.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Here.
Mayor Marshall.
Here. Okay, and we do have a proclamation with Councilwoman Yesenia De La Rosa.
All right, guys, ready? Okay, so we have a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Avalon recognizing the accomplishment of the Avalon High School Lancer football team as a 2024 CIF Southern Section 8-man Division II champions. Whereas the Avalon High School Lancer football team made a huge commitment to becoming the best team possible. And whereas the Avalon Lancer football team has made 4 consecutive CIFs Southern Section semifinal appearances and were championship finalists in 2022. And whereas in 2024, the Avalon Lancer football team was ranked number 11 in the state of California in 8-man football. And whereas on Saturday, November 30, 2024, the Avalon Lancer football team won the championship game against Lancaster Baptist High School by a score of 20-10. And whereas this historic win marks only the 5th time in Avalon School's 100-year history to have won a CIF Southern Section championship title. And whereas Matthew De La Rosa, Owen Chavoya, Chris Gonzalez, Isaac Rivas, Aaron Rubio, and Nathan Villagra were named all CIF in Division II 8-man football, and Manassas Rubio was named CIF Southern Section Division II 8-man football player of the year. And whereas Coach Nick Moronis, who is a proud alumni, returned to his alma mater as a Lancer assistant football coach in 2018 and became the head football coach in 2020. Coach Moronis led this team to a championship alongside his defensive coach, Cruz Martinez, and assistant coaches, Ruben Segura and Chris Winter. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Avalon would like to formally congratulate the Avalon Lancer football team as the 2024 CIF Southern Section 8-man Division II championship and wish them continued success. Dated this first day of April 2025.
All right. Can you get all the gentlemen on the first couple rows and somebody will take a picture? Jocelyn, thank you.
Should we just stand right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I was assuming something gets
Loud boys up. I think a couple of the stand on the top.
Yeah.
Definitely gonna have to smash it.
There never is.
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody will ever see you.
Better be on your tippy toes, Michael.
If everybody just turn sideways and make a scrunch of the
guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Making us proud.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
I was serious about you guys staying. This isn't April Fool's.
Yeah, they have homework. What? He said they have homework. Oh.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Okay. All righty. Do we have any announcements or written communications?
I have one announcement. Today's the last day to file your Statement of Economic Interest, Form 700. Also, city staff received 2 written communications regarding item 7, medical cannabis delivery business permit application direction, and 10 written communications regarding item 9, discuss revisions to Article 3 of Chapter 1 of Title 3 of the Avalon Municipal Code modifying the transient rental licensing system. The copies have been distributed to City Council and are filed in the City Clerk's office.
Excellent. Department head reports, and I would like to start today. Matt, are you back there? Okay, so, because first of all, I was on the Forense yesterday and it went very smoothly. I think we were down 1 tender, but it went very, very well. But the other thing is, I know our city council has a lot of respect for our city manager. He listens to people in the community, he takes action, and besides that, one of his other great attributes is he's a wonderful negotiator. And I don't know if you saw it, things leak in this really small town, but in his negotiations, he has managed to work with Safeway Corporation and Trader Joe's, and they will now be moving in to the old Vaughn's building. So thank you very much.
We remind everyone that it's April Fool's Day.
Hell no. I think we want to thank Tricia Edwards for that. That's the first person I received it from. So thank you.
There are worse things.
That's all I had.
I love it. I don't have anything except for I was studying this agenda since Friday.
Department head reports.
Oh, department head, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm all out of whack.
We're still on
Okay, I was so excited about sharing that.
I was just following her lead.
I know. Sorry, Jackie.
No worries. You got me. I thought we had Trader Joe's. I was like, oh my God. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, and City staff. Jackie Cordero, Public Works Director. Public Works crew is extremely busy trying to accomplish as many repairs and restoration projects as possible. You can see them everywhere. We're continuing to beautify Front Street with new plantings, repairing concrete benches, and renovating the Green Pier restroom. The crew has also been busy repairing saltwater leaks throughout town. As the weather warms up, things and sediment move, so there's and then there's more use to the system because we have more folks visiting the island, so we're seeing more leaks pop up. This last week, the crew fixed about 4, and there's still a couple pending. The crew is continuing their routine maintenance of cleaning the parks, streets, and facilities, and they're also helping with CIP projects, such as the guardrail and the Five Corners project. The mechanics are also very busy keeping up with preventative maintenance on all the vehicles, equipment, and boats, ensuring everything is operational and ready for the season. So please continue to be patient with us, and if you do see them out there, please say thank you to them. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
Thank you, Jackie.
No, thank
Thank
you.
Good evening, Council. Matt Baker, Finance Director. Just thought I'd give Council an update on the budget timeline for the next few council meetings. Right now, the plan is on the 15th to discuss kind of the current year revenue as well as CIP update. We're going to switch the order a bit in the first meeting in May, go into CIP for next year in more detail, and then discuss the operating budgets at the May 20th meeting. Then at the June 3rd, drafted the budget for council to review in its entirety, and then hopefully, if all goes as planned, June 17th for adoption. So we switched the order just because we are going to be in the middle of MOU negotiations with all the bargaining units. And so that way it kind of buys me a little more time into figuring out what we need to budget in those accounts.
Any questions? Great, thank you.
All right,
Look
thank
forward
you.
to it. Them.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Staff. Michael Allegria, Fire Chief. In March, we ran one of our lowest totals, 42 calls, 23 medical, 19 fire-related. I think it was a day or two after our e-cart presentation. We had 3 golf cart accidents in 2 days. We had 2 in about 20 minutes, within 20 minutes of each other. The golf cart company hadn't lifted their cart yet, and another one already crashed up the hill higher. We had another good e-bike accident yesterday. CAL FIRE maps are out. We got our letter on the 24th. We have 120 days to bring it to council and adopt, which brings me to on April 25th, we're going to host some sort of town hall at the fire station in the afternoon. It's a Friday afternoon, time to be determined. There will be a CAL FIRE division chief come in. I'm going to show him around town. We're going to have a talk, go to lunch, and then we'll have a town hall meeting at the fire station. Looking around 1 or 2, but it's not confirmed yet.
Questions, comments?
Can you send out an invite for that once you have the time
Yeah,
determined
once
for
we-
us? That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Sergeant Grayson Klein, Avalon Sheriff Station. Since the last meeting, we've had 49 calls for service, 101 observations made by the deputies. We had 7 arrests, which I think had something to do with people in the Islander complaining there hadn't been an article, but I had nothing to write about. So this last 2 weeks, we had 7, which a lot of stuff to write about. We had a domestic violence felony. We had a DUI with a collision. 3 drunken publics, and 2 arrested for grand theft. The grand theft was some really good work by the detective and the deputies. Some people had stolen the visitor's backpack that had their credit card, and within 30 minutes, $1,600 was charged to their card, along with items that were stolen. The detective and his sergeant located these guys, took them out, and recovered all the stolen property, and we're working on getting some stuff back to them through the courts, but there would be 2 felony filings on that. They wrote 13 citations for stop signs and unlicensed drivers, so the last 2 weeks have been pretty productive. And we're also coordinating a couple bicycle assembly meetings at the school for the month of April.
Good stuff.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Grayson. I
Yes,
really
ma'am.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Grayson.
Hi, Bob Greenlaw. Good evening, Council. Give you a little update on some continuing capital projects. So Five Corners continues, as you see out there. We're focusing on the curb and gutter and sidewalk on where the abutting property owners are on Tremont before the end of May here, so that in case they have visitors there, that we don't impact their operations. We're also continuing the storm drain, and the utilities along Avalon Canyon and Tremont are going in, all the underground utilities. Also, another project we got going is Slater Construction starts the concrete repairs of the wastewater treatment plant on the week of April 14th. And then they'll continue and do work on the saltwater station out there at the elbow. They've got some concrete work repair to do down in the hole there. And also, we got Wayne Perry, that contract we have with the drill rig that's going to drill the test holes. That'll be in the week of April 14th, also down by the casino at the old fuel at the fuel tank site at the fuel dock. And then the Green Pier pile repair project is on the agenda tonight. We opened bids. We had 2 bidders. We'll talk more about that later. If awarded, the winning contractor is ready to move in. Any questions?
Just a little bit about the mole and that whole stuff, that whole project, starting with the relocation of the businesses and all that. What are we you've got so much on your plate, but what's the timeline for that, Bob?
Okay, so we've got those 4 components that we talked about, was the utility undergrounding all the way from the trailhead back so that we can get the new service in. That project is ready to roll out to bid. And so then it's really the timing of that with the visitors when that can be delivered, so that we're not impacting having a construction project right in the middle of where all the cruise ships and all that activity would be.
And that's okay, that's the only one I needed to know,
Okay.
because that's first. Okay, and then the others will follow.
Yes, the others will follow, but we're working on all of them on a parallel path. So,
Okay.
So it's not stop, start, you know.
Right,
So it's
right.
all going together. You'll hear about that more very soon.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Bob. Any questions of Bob? No? Okay.
You're closer.
But she outranks you.
And that too. Thanks for pointing that out. Kevin Schmidt, Harbor Master.
Good enough.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So just a couple things that's going on in the harbor. We got the gale warnings up tonight and through tomorrow late afternoon probably. So it's supposed to blow pretty good out in the channel. It's west, northwest. So shouldn't be too bad inside the harbor, but not optimal for boating. Looks like the Navigator has canceled for tomorrow officially, so we won't have a cruise ship in. Flyers canceled, and Express is probably, we'll see how that goes. We also have this weekend the Wild Buffalo Outrigger Race. We're still waiting to get some details on exactly how many boats are going to be in on that one, but it looks like the weather's going to be okay for that, so we should have probably something around 80 participants in that. So, and they're chase boats, so it should be a busy weekend. They'll be in, Saturday they do their short course down to Long Point and back, and then Sunday they race back to Newport. So that's the Wild Buffalo. Right now we're ramping up for summer. We're going to put dinghy docks back in, some of the dinghy docks back in next week. The swim line's not too long after that. Jay's starting to put their moorings back in, so we're in the mode of getting ready for the boating season. We still got training continues. We got 3 guys going off to basic coastal operator class in May. Paul Sanchez, one of our new supervisors, and I are going to the California Boating Safety Officers Association training symposium next week down in San Diego, so that should be interesting. And then everybody's favorite, some stats. For the month of March, we had 2,695 mooring nights, which is almost a 10% increase over last year. So
Wow.
There's a little bit of good news. We had 4 citations written since the last time we met, 2 emergency medical calls, 22 enforcement calls, and 41 public assists.
Questions, comments?
Okay.
Good job.
That's all yours.
I know.
That's right, Jocelyn.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. David Hart, Community Services. From March 19th to 21st, my Recreation Coordinator, Marissa Morones, and I attended the California Parks and Recreation Society Convention in Sacramento. This provided us with valuable opportunity to learn from leading recreational professionals regarding technological advancements, leadership strategies, program development, and the process of transforming conceptual ideas into practical implementations. We also got to attend the expo, where we can interact with leading product developers in rec software, playgrounds, maintenance structures, outdoor fitness and equipment. The convention was an engaging, impactful experience, which we believe will significantly improve our department. We have provided the council with a detailed email summarizing our key learnings. Please appreciate, you'll notice in there, I did make it up the warp wall from the ninja course. I just wanted to put that up there. We are thankful for this opportunity to be able to have participated in this. As our harbor master mentioned, this weekend, the Avalon will be hosting the Wild Buffalo Race. It's a key event in the Southern California Ocean Racing Winter Series, sponsored by Puakea Designs, a leading outrigger canoe company. The race features a 32-mile course from Avalon, Catalina to Newport Aquatic Center in Newport Beach. Participants include relay teams, 2 to 4 people, and also solo racers. So that's one person making that whole distance themselves in various small crafts. The short race will be held on Saturday. That's where they do about a 5-mile race, and then they'll do a picnic and lunch up at the Machine Gun Park. They do invite anybody who might be interested in learning about outrigging canoe to come up and meet with them and talk about it. And there will also be members of our own outrigger canoe teams there to welcome people to that type of event. And then they'll be racing out on Sunday for the 32 miles, starting at 10 a.m. on Sunday. Finally, this weather finally cleared up, so we could have our grand opening last Friday for what was the skate park, which we've now renamed. I'll put that here at the end for a little drum roll. We had about 40 people at the grand opening, and we had the mayor was there to cut the ribbon. She gave a little talk about the importance of the community taking care of these new courts and facilities, as well as in the process taking care of each other. So it was a nice, inspiring speech. And the courts will be open. They're open all day, all the way till 10 p.m. at night, because we've put solar lights up there, so it's lit till 10 p.m. at night. And the name that was given, we had a list of names, and then this one was given to us by some other people that wasn't on the list, and then was rechosen. And the name of the courts is the Court of Dreams.
The Court of Dreams.
The Court of Dreams. Since it's right next to the Field of Dreams, we've gone with the Court of Dreams. Something quick, catchy, and people kind of know where it is at that point. Some programs that we do have that are coming up is we have T-ball. Registration is now open for that. T-ball runs from May 11th through June 15th. It's for kids ages 3.5 to 5 years old for our squirts, and then our sluggers are ages 6 to 8 years old. And you can sign up now until May 10th. And then we have our karate starts a new session on April 12th, and that ends on May 31st, but sessions are open to register, and it's $60 for the 8-week session. And last but not, actually I have 2 more things. We have coming up called Spring Break Day Camp. It's a project that we put together along with the Conservancy, and so during the spring break, we realized that a lot of families are working, so we try to figure out a way to kind of bring day camp during that week to give more opportunities and some sort of programming for the children. And so we lined up with the Conservancy. And so on April 14th, 15th, and the 18th, that is Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, along with the Conservancy, we'll be taking them out into the interior. We'll teach them stuff like survival skills, what to do if you were to get lost out there, and how do you utilize compasses. They'll visit several of the beaches, the campgrounds. They'll be able to earn buttons when they, kind of like Boy Scouts when they complete a task, and they'll be served lunch, and they'll get a chance to swim out in the interior, go kayaking out in the interior. It's booked up. So currently we have room for 25. We're booked up except Friday. We have 4 spots left. So if anybody wants to get their kids involved for one of these, they also includes not just a T-shirt, but a backpack and survival kits. So we're excited about that, especially being booked up so early. And then last but not least, we have our City of Avalon Easter egg hunt at Descanso Beach on Saturday, April 19th. And that's also alongside the Island Company allowing us to utilize Descanso Beach. So it's such a beautiful setting for that event. And that is on Saturday. And we have April 19th, 0 to 3-year-olds at 10 a.m., 4 to 6-year-olds 10:15, 7 to 10-year-olds 10:30, and 11 to 17-year-olds at 10:45. And so the Easter Bunny will be there, so you can get pictures with the Easter Bunny. We'll have craft tables, and I believe they will also, the Island Company will be serving hot chocolate out there as well. Any questions? No?
Nice and busy, that's awesome, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jocelyn Francis, Assistant City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Council. This Saturday is the bulky item hazardous waste drop-off event here at City Hall. We'll accept hazardous waste, tires, sharps, appliances, furniture, you name it. CRNR will be on island as well as IDR. That's 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Here at City Hall. In addition, good news, the Olin's reverse vending machine cube is on island. So we're working on coordinating installation efforts with Olin's and Vaughn's. So more to come on that. We'll definitely keep everybody in the loop on when that's up and running. Last week, on Thursday and Friday, we hosted 3 different vendors for the Civic Center Housing Project. These vendors were modular housing manufacturers, and we learned a lot about the process and each of the 3 companies that submitted proposals. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to visit some of their projects that are completed on site to look at the quality and the condition of the buildings that they've done so far. But it's truly amazing what each of these companies have done with an assembly line production for building housing in California. So very exciting. Today, April 1st, was the last day of vehicle season. So if you didn't get in, tomorrow you might have a $30 late fee attached to your application. So still get in. You don't want to get any citations. But yeah, vehicle season, the last day was today. And then just some stats from code enforcement. They were busy last month. Over 170 citations were issued. They have 25 written case reports for animal control violations, illegal dumping, vehicle abatement, and building code violations. They issued 20 red tags, 4 stop work orders, responded to 30 animal control calls for service, and 25 emergency calls for service. And that's all I have.
That's a lot, thank you.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, okay. Oh, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening. A few things tonight, just over the next couple weeks. Anybody looking for summer work, high school students, keep an eye on the city's website. We'll be posting opening positions for our summer seasonal positions, both in community services and in the harbor, and also looking to fill some part-time public works positions. So keep an eye open for that when that becomes available. As council is aware, the city staff, we are working on submitting an application for California City's Helen Putnam Award. We're very excited about this. This was one we basically a year ago this time we eyed doing. We wanted to have 1 year in with Coast, the new public transportation system. We're just about there, not quite a year in, but close enough for us to submit this application and feel very confident that it meets their standards, okay? And what they look at, and I think what we can present is over the last 12 months that we've been in operation, we've far exceeded the standards that we set for the number of passengers to move. It's well in excess of anything done prior in public transportation in Avalon. We were able to do it cheaper, less emissions with the all-vehicle lineup, obviously quieter, and not only was it cheaper, we were able to take that money we saved, kept it in the Metro system, went to Metro and reallocated it and put it into the subsidy program last July when we were able to further reduce the subsidy card. So all of it is working, and hopefully in the next month we'll be bringing to council a request to expand the fleet, add more vehicles, which would increase the number of drivers and more vehicles on the road to meet the needs that we're seeing. So that's exciting. Thanks to Devin Hart for working on that application.
And with that, the announcements would be made at the Cal Cities conference in September, October?
October, correct.
October, so that's exciting. It would be nice for all of us to be able to take the stage. Tired of watching everybody else stand up there.
Right. So, keep our fingers crossed. We'll let you know how that's going.
Excellent.
And then next week, just want to let council know, I'll be attending the Sea Trade Convention with Jim Luchahan. We also have a contingent of business owners from the city that will be going. We have meetings already scheduled, thanks again to Jim, with all our cruise ship partners out there, with what we have going on now, with really focusing on trying to get port agreements. I think that this will probably be one of the most important meetings we have with all of them out there, because everybody, all our other partners are interested in entering port agreements and negotiating and talking about those. So very excited to have those meetings, and hopefully we come back, hopefully by this late spring, early summer, we'll have all of that in place. So that's all I have. Thank you.
So when I called you a great negotiator, that wasn't like an April Fool's joke.
That was the real part.
So you'll do very well at Sea
I
Trade.
appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, do we have a city attorney on board?
We do, but no reports tonight, Mayor.
That was it?
Yes, no reports tonight.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, council member reports, please.
Oh, like I said, this is deja vu. I really got nothing except for I was just scouring this agenda all weekend, so gonna be lively.
Just a few things to report. I attended the school board meeting at the auditorium, which was nice. I want to say thank you to Principal Peguero and teacher Julie Kilpack and Catalina Edwards for having that set up. So in case anyone is wondering moving forward, and Dave Hart mentioned this at the last meeting, you're now able to attend and speak at the Long Beach Unified School Board meetings here on campus at the auditorium. All you need to do when you arrive is complete a very short form, which they actually have you fill out over town as well, to be able to put your name into the speaker pool. And then I was actually surprised because there was quite a bit of drama in this one between board members, which I have not seen in my year and a half of attending school board meetings. So bring the popcorn, have a good time.
And the next one is April 9th?
They're the first and third Wednesdays of every month. So the next one is actually tomorrow. It's the day after our council meetings, basically.
Oh, okay.
I usually don't get to attend the first one of the month because I'm over for COG, and so we'll see what happens tomorrow, though, because I don't think the boats are running. I stopped by in the middle of the school board meeting because it was that long. It was the longest one I've also ever been to at 5.5 hours. Yeah, that's true. Rocky and Hugh's retirement party from LA County Sheriff's Department was pleasantly surprised to see Joe Badali there, and got to see a number of faces hanging out together. It was a very boisterous crowd by the time I got there. I definitely could not have caught up if I tried. So it sounds like it was a really good time. There were some great speeches. So again, thank you for their service and time in town to serve the community. I attended a program on the 20th on an update on DACA. So if anyone are DACA recipients, it's extremely in flux right now. They're recommending that if you are due for renewal anytime in the next 6 months, that you get that done sooner rather than later. If you're needing to travel, either, especially internationally, that you consider talking about your travel plans with someone who is well practiced in immigration law, just to ensure that you are making the right choices and have things set up if you need to in case of an emergency. But it was a well-attended meeting and a lot of information saying we don't know what's happening, we're not sure what's going to happen next. So attended a meeting with the CPUC and AVX networks to ask and answer questions regarding the federal funding account, and wanted to thank Karen and Paloma from the CPUC for their time, and then thankful also to Hector from the COG for going after a couple of additional letters of support for this program. Again, as a reminder, this is now round 2 of that funding. They created a rule specifically that applies to Avalon, which I think is making a very positive point, hopefully. It should be a short turnaround. Application is happening this coming week. 2 weeks for application, 2 weeks for challenges, and then the review process. So I'm hoping to have good news soon if we can remain competitive with those who apply this time. Attended the Love Catalina Mixer, and it was such a good time. It was Maverick Helicopters hosted. We all got to go up for 5-minute flights over the city, and it was absolutely beautiful. If you didn't get a chance to do that, check it out. They're going to be doing air tours every day at 12:15. So for those of you who always ask about who's up in the air over town, that's usually them. So it'll be every day. They do that at 12:30 every day. And then attended the Gateway Cities broadband meeting that came up last minute on Monday. Was slightly envious because 23 of the 28 cities in the COG are getting free broadband to their city halls as part of this project. Completely free. It's paid for by the grant projects. They don't have to pay to install it. They don't have to pay to have it connect to their offices. They just get broadband. And they can choose from there what they want to do. Some cities in the South Bay have chosen to provide low-cost internet for their communities. Some have chosen to expand it out to all of their sites where they have city staff. Some have made it available for, of course, hospitals, schools, anchor institutions. We may not be getting that same level of free broadband, unfortunately. However, I would like us, if the FFA does get approved, and because we're including monies for the FFA as part of the match, that we consider discussing with AVX Networks having some kind of offset in cost for broadband for the first X number of years that it's available on the island. There's a lot of things we can do after that in terms of branching out and providing additional service, public Wi-Fi, things like that. City manager and I discussed some of those options and tried to kind of wrap our head around what that could even look like, but until we know what the scope of the project is when it's completed, we won't know that part. So, and then last but not least, attended the Transient Radio workshop. Actually, it's not last, sorry. Attended the Transient Radio workshop listening party. This is a thing that the radio station had done previously with Transient Radio and David Weinberg, who is a phenomenal teacher. He takes students that have either some or no experience in any part of technology for this and teaches them basically how to record sound and write copy for a podcast so that you can tell stories. So we've been fortunate to have this happen now. I think this one, I want to say it's either the 6th or 7th year that it's happened over a span of the last decade, where they'll interview people from town for these interviews, and the list of people including, and it's so cool to hear their voices after they're gone, or even while they're still here. Renzo Sampson, Lolo Saldana, Janny Eisenhut, Joe Guyan. This one had Miss Mary Schickling as one of the focuses, and Jim Watson, Tracy Degnan. There were a number of them that were awesome this time. They're great to listen to. It's a really cool program. In the past, they've also been able to offer scholarships for a couple of residents from Avalon to attend. I'm hoping that that'll happen again next time. They didn't get to do it this time.
We're going to be working with it and bringing podcasting here.
Yeah.
As a program for the kids.
Perfect. So Dave Hart was saying from the crowd that the goal is to have the city and potentially even with the school or not, partner to be able to utilize and make sure the equipment that's there doesn't go to waste, that we have that training happen for the students of Avalon. I can't think of a more important time to tell stories than right now. So anyway, that's going to be awesome. And just a note of kudos for the Helen Putnam Award. Again, highlighting city staff and how much you guys do and how much effort you put into these projects that we bring to the community. You deserve to get some accolades for what you do. The Helen Putnam Award is a great first step for that. I think there's a number of projects we have that are going to fit into that space over the next few years coming up. So I'm excited for you guys to also kind of get your flowers and be recognized for the work that you're doing to impact the community positively. Oh, and if the boats aren't canceled, I have COG tomorrow, but if not, it'll be remote.
Yesenia?
I'll go first, very short. Attended Cal City's policy committee meeting on Friday for community services. It's always interesting to hear stories from other cities and what's going on. And I will, when I get the printed of what happened, we'll share it with you in your boxes again. But it's always good for us to be represented in any of these organizations, because our voice always needs to be heard. So.
Okay, so for me this week, the Boys and Girls Club visited, and they presented here in the council chambers, sharing the wide range of programs and resources they could offer our kids, from music, art, college prep, mentoring. But they did mention that it was important to hear from the entire community that this is actually a need, so they can begin moving forward with making it happen and advocating to the rest of the Boys and Girls Club, because, you know, it is a big logistical process. But it's something that I know a lot of us firmly believe and know that we need. So if we can make our voices heard, that'd be very much appreciated so we can get this done. Also this week, I had Catalina Island Women's Forum. We focused on self-care this week for the girls. Tessa Hernandez led us in a session on stress management techniques, and we wrapped up with a pot painting activity where each participant received affirmations to remind them of their strength and resilience. And we're also going to expand that program now to 9th through 12th for the next upcoming year. So we're finalizing some details to make sure they can sign up before the year ends. And then this week also, Centro Cha, a Long Beach nonprofit, will be holding a Know Your Rights workshop. And they will also provide general information on DACA and citizenship forms. And once they return for the resource fair, which is April 24th, but Centro Cha will be staying from the 24th to the 26th, so they can assist individuals and families to fill out the forms for the DACA and citizenship. And then I also had the honor of attending the Avalon High School football ring ceremony. And I think for me, moments like this are especially meaningful when you've grown up alongside some of the coaches, been mentored by the others, and seeing them now raise our community's family members, so, you know, brothers, nephews, cousins, just makes this achievement a lot sweeter than it just is in general. So, and to the players, I know they're not here, but I really want them to know that whatever the future holds, that the community will always be here for them. And I will be attending Contract Cities tomorrow night. And that's it for me.
One of the suggestions at the Boys and Girls Club meeting was a video in English and Spanish that can get out there to be able to spread the word, because we can't say enough here about the program, and not that many people listen to really get it going. And so we've really got to get to those young people and to those families about the potential for this kind of programming in Avalon for our youth. So
we're in constant contact also with Dave Hart and him with Mike Lansing. So I know it's something that's already in our to-do list. Yeah. So we'll definitely get it done.
That's great. Okay, oral communication. This is an opportunity for people in the audience to speak on items that are not on the agenda. You will be limited to 2 minutes and no action will be taken.
Hello, Council. I'm Carl Johnson, and I previously operated a licensed medical delivery here in Avalon under the entity Catalina Connect. And I'm here, I want to work on reestablishing the business as Catalina Cannabis Corp. But tonight, I respectfully request that the Council consider placing a future agenda item to revise Avalon's cannabis ordinance, specifically to allow delivery-only operations to be located in non-commercial zones under strict compliance and security requirements. State law does not require delivery-only services to be located on commercial zones. This restriction is a local choice. Unfortunately, in Avalon, this has become an unintentional barrier to small, compliant businesses trying to reestablish operations. Commercial property is extremely limited and cost prohibitive on the island, and many landlords are unwilling to authorize cannabis on their property. To be frank, there are other delivery operators currently active in Avalon from non-commercial zones. Though I won't name them, all I'm asking is a level playing field and a chance to re-enter the market legally and transparently. Allowing compliant, non-public facing delivery operations outside commercial zones does not affect the community's character or create nuisance issues. These are secure, staff-only locations with no patient or public traffic. Please consider allowing this issue to come back to a future agenda item. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm just asking for a fair shot to operate responsibly under modern, reasonable guidelines. Thank you for your time and for considering ways to support Avalon's legal, locally driven businesses.
Thank you, Carl, for your comments. Anybody else? Yeah, we got a couple here, I see.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have the privilege of making a gift to you, Mayor, of an advance copy of Michael Connolly's new book, Nightshade, which is a mystery novel set here on Catalina Island and in the city of Avalon.
Oh. So who is Michael Connolly?
He's a writer.
Well, I know that. No, he's
Have
a
you,
poet.
have you ever heard of the Bosch character? Hieronymus Bosch?
He's a New York Times bestselling author. He's a prolific writer. Most of his novels are very California-centric, and he mixes reality with fictional characters very artfully and very beautifully. So this, without revealing too much, because I've already been reading, a detective reluctantly assigned to the Avalon Sheriff's Department begins investigating a few crimes and along the way is very much in love with this place.
All right. Well, thank you, and we'll tell Mr. Connolly thank you.
I'd like to quickly also thank the members of the community who, with fairly short notice, helped me pull together hosting a group of visiting Pepperdine students last Sunday. These students are working on our sustainable tourism plan, and that would include the museum, the Catalina Island Conservancy, Catalina Taxi and Tours, and many individuals in the community who were willing to just speak to them along the way and throughout the day. We are having our annual shredding event. It will be taking place on April 28th. You can drop off before 3 p.m., and we've just started publicizing that, and that'll be out at Avalon Freight again, as always, in the bankers' boxes. And then finally, I'd just like to give a special shout out to Maverick Helicopters, not only for the hosting of the mixer, which was pretty incredible and an amazing gift to the community, but today for adding a whole bunch of extra flights. So a whole lot of us got home without having to rent hotel rooms over town again. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
That was a great event. Okay, thank you, Jim.
Good evening, Council. Gail Fornacier here from Catalina Island Health, just to give you a couple of quick updates. Our next Community Health Talk takes place this Saturday in the Council chambers here from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Our visiting specialist dermatologist, Dr. Wang, will be here to talk about skincare, regimens, protect how to use properly sunscreen, concerning moles and melanoma, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to be here for that, please show up. We'll have, of course, snacks. It will also have Spanish translation. And if you can't make it, we'll be live streaming on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel.
And what time was that? I'm sorry.
11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday the 5th.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
And then also, please join us on the 24th of this month for the next Island Resident Resource Fair. It will take place in the Parish Hall of St. Catherine's Church from 12 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. We'll have Lupe's Tacos to keep you satiated for lunch, 12 to 3. Maybe another vendor later in the day, but for sure cookies and drinks from Vaughn's later. So thank them for that. So excited to say that this event is growing, like really a lot. Back in October when we had the last one, we had 22 organizations and agencies that participated, and we currently have 34 for this one. So people are willing and wanting to help our community. It's super gratifying to see. Members of our community will have access to vaccinations, assistance with Medi-Cal and other insurances, resources for mental health, aging, housing rights, grief counseling, immigration, and more. A dental group, the county clerk's office, representatives from the county, state, and federal legislators will all be here to answer questions and talk to people. And then thanks to Councilmember De La Rosa and Assistant City Manager Francis for their help, as we have also secured the side room next to the parish hall at the church. We'll have a grief support group from 1:30 to 2:30 in Spanish from our house grief support group, and then a housing rights workshop from 3:30 to 5 p.m. that same day in that same room. Both are offered in English and Spanish. And they'll be there, the Housing Rights Center will be there to answer questions and help folks, tenants mostly, but also landlords can ask questions as well. And we're also thrilled to have Central Cha participate, and thanks to Councilmember De La Rosa for sharing what they do, since I knew I was going to run out of time.
Good job. Thank you, Gail. Is there anybody else? Okay, the consent calendar.
Okay, consent calendar, item 1, approval of total expenditures for March 10th, 2025 through March 21st, 2025, totaling $1,353,420.02. Item 2, adopt a resolution declaring vehicles and equipment listed in resolution as surplus property and authorize the city manager to dispose of it in accordance with city policy. Item 3, receive and file the general plan housing element annual report for 2024 and direct staff to submit the housing element annual progress report to the California Department of Housing and Community Development and the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation.
Would you like to pull any of these?
I'm just super curious as to why the general plan and housing element is under consent calendar. It seems to me like there's a lot to talk about. I mean, I went through it and I had a lot of questions, and I don't know. Did you guys have any questions on it, or can we bring this back at a later date? Can we study it some more? I mean, I'm just from Friday to today, I just feel like I need more time to talk about this, to look at it.
Is it something that can come back, or is this something that needs to be timely?
Kelly, can you speak to the time frame we're operating with?
Kelly Rebuffo, contract planner. So this is just an annual progress report that essentially is giving Housing and Community Development and the Governor's Office an update on the progress that we're making on the implementation of items in our housing element, specifically the production of housing related to our 6 RHNA, or Regional Housing Needs Allocation housing numbers. So we were supposed to have this filed by April 1st of every year. So ideally, council would review it tonight and give a receive and file on this. Like I said, it's just an informational item for HCD, so if you wanted to schedule a separate discussion moving forward to talk about any of our housing element programs, I think that would better be done as a separate session to give staff an opportunity to prepare some additional information related to your questions as well.
And Kelly, just to be clear, this is not the general plan, but simply a reporting regarding the housing element from last year.
That's correct. This is just a report of progress on our existing housing element in the general plan. This is not a recommendation for new policy, procedures, or adopting any new regulations.
It's just, have we done any,
Right. How
built
far are
any
we?
new things? We built any ADUs? That kind of thing. It's just.
Right, no, I understand that it's only part of the general plan. I get that. But like when I was just looking through it, I was looking at one of the tables and it had the Cameron Hotel there and it had no demolished units. And there were 10. And so how does that play out with what we report to the state and what do we get back and that kind of stuff?
So as far as the 301 Beacon Street, which is the Cameron Hotel project, the building on that property had previously been a 10-unit apartment building. However, because it had been vacant for over 25 years, that does not count as units that were lost as part of the demolition of that building for the construction of the new project. Under state law for the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, we only need to consider replacement or net loss of units that have been occupied essentially within the last 10 years. So if it's been vacant for more than 10 years, we don't have to consider those as lost units.
Okay, and in Table D, does code enforcement identify code violations?
Is this related to housing-related code violations for one of our programs?
I didn't understand what you said, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So what item in Table D are you asking a question about? Which program number?
Code enforcement, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, code enforcement, so it's on Table D, it's number 2, it says, investigate 100% of possible code violations, disseminate information on housing rehabilitation assistance available to address code violations and other housing issues with a focus on the community's older homes closer to town. And it says, the status of the program says the city has 2 code enforcement officers who investigate all possible code violations and assist with the dissemination of housing rehabilitation assistance. Reviewed code complaints quarterly to identify areas for targeted outreach, ongoing. So I just wasn't sure what they do, what violations are they finding them? Are they documented somewhere? What's the outreach? You know, I don't know. It was just that I don't expect everything to be answered right here and now. I mean, since it was on the consent calendar, and we're kind of in a bind because you said it has to be filed by April 1st, and today's April 1st. So I wish that we would have been able to look this over and ask some more questions and understand it, because as everyone knows, housing is a very tight, touchy subject in this town, and if we've got state mandated things, I just want the opportunity to look at it and go through it and make sure that I understand that we are doing everything possible to, you know, meet the compliance and meet the needs of the community.
So what I would recommend related to specifically the program item 2 code enforcement is that if the council would be interested in having me coordinate with Assistant City Manager Francis, who oversees code enforcement, and we could get a little more detailed information for you regarding this item and bring that back as kind of a informational item at an upcoming meeting if you would like. Usually we don't get into that level of detail for this report because HCD doesn't need that level of detail, but certainly if it's something council would like us to get a little more into, we could do a more robust report for you.
So that you can understand exactly why they put that answer in that box. You know, yeah, so what is rehab, and you know, how are if you just want to know, and how are the complaints given and how are they investigated? I don't know that this report says how they remedied everything that might come up. And when we do the residential inspection program, we might find that becomes more obvious in these kind of reports as well.
Right, well, so if this is coming to council and asking us to, you know, say, yay, go ahead and submit this, why aren't we allowed to look at it beforehand? Why, I would just appreciate a little more study time on something this lengthy, this convoluted, and this meaningful.
I just want to make, it's not convoluted. I mean, convoluted makes it seem like it's filling out the form that's provided to us. It's not convoluted.
Well, okay, complicated then, not convoluted. I stand corrected. No. I just, you know, it just seemed like a lot to me. It seemed like a lot to digest, and I just wanted, I'm not saying anything is bad, and I'm not saying it's not correct. I'm not saying anything negative like that. I'm just saying I was surprised to see it on the consent calendar, and I would just like next year a little more time maybe.
And just a better explanation of what everything is. Yeah, that makes sense. No, don't be sorry. Okay. Now, council, what's your pleasure?
I'll move to approve items 1 through 3 on consent.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Councilmember Ponce.
I didn't hit her hard enough? There you go.
All ayes.
Thank you. Item number 4.
This is general business now. Item number 4, on-site professional services for 5-year fire hydrant flow test and inspection. Jackie Cordero will come up to address this and answer any questions.
Hi, good afternoon. This is something that's needed for operational readiness for public safety for fire. I worked with Fire Chief Alegria, and we obtained 3 proposals, one being with our current wastewater treatment contractor, PERC. We have Davis Fire Protection. They came in significantly under budget. or actually the lowest bid, so we're going with that one. There'll be flow testing, inspecting approximately 200 fire hydrants, both freshwater and saltwater. Do you have any questions?
No, so my question, I talked to the city managers, is our fire department goes and inspects, and but they don't go to the depth that PERC does, and here's...
Yeah, this is the pressure. So for example, in Pacific Palisades, how a lot of people were talking about, what about the pressure and the flow? This is exactly what this would be doing, but I'm sure.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we open them and check them, but this pressure test hasn't been done in close to 20 years. Supposed to do it every 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
So we need some new updated numbers for sprinklers and buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And fire flow.
Excellent. Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion per the city's procurement policy, authorize city manager or designee to execute an agreement with Davis Fire Protection to provide on-site professionalized services for a 5-year fire hydrant flow test and inspection of approximately 200 fire hydrants in the city of Avalon for an amount not to exceed $25,000 from the Saltwater Capital Improvement Fund, number 11325-6552.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, call for the vote.
All ayes.
And item number 5.
Thank you. Item number 5 is Type 3 fire engine purchase. As you recall, last council meeting, we acknowledged the receipt of the grant agreement from Southern California Edison for $600,000. Now the fire chief did not wait around. He went out and found one. So this is the engine that he found that meets the specifications.
So, excuse me, Dave, do I have to recuse myself for this?
You do not. You do not, because this is the contract for the fire department. It does not involve a contract with Edison.
Right.
Cool. Fire truck.
Laura, do we have questions of our fire chief? Or you want to comment? Sir?
No, just waiting, waiting for the vote.
Okay, if there's no questions, call for, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager or his designee to negotiate and execute a contract with South Coast Fire Equipment for a not-to-exceed sum of $700,000 as budgeted in the city's fiscal year 2024-25, capital improvement project number 234501. Account number is 10245-687.1. And then 2, amend the capital improvement project number 234501, account number 10245-6871 by increasing the budget by $600,000 to offset the anticipated donation from Edison International.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. No questions, call for the vote.
All ayes.
Wait till you try and get in this one.
Item 6.
It's going to be tall.
Item 6, authorize fire, also for the fire department, authorize the city manager or his designee to purchase a 2025 Honda Pioneer 1000 Med-Lite Transport Deluxe MTD 103 Rescue Bed for an amount not to exceed $35,000 from the Capital Improvement Project 234501, account 102456871 from Huntington Beach Honda. Chief.
Any questions?
Questions?
I just give a little info for the community so they understand why we're getting this vehicle.
So just increasing calls with the potential for accidents on the hour trail and the horse trail. And also we could utilize this during 4th of July parades, things at the events at the Scanso, and also on the terraces. There's been a couple times where we could not get in the terrace. So if we're at the station, this would just be another resource we could use to get into the terrace. But especially, you know, the city kind of does go up the hills a lot farther than we think. The city limits behind the dump, partway up Renton's Mine Road, the Memorial, the Divide Road, and a couple other places that are hard to get to that our ambulance can't make. So this will be a great addition for that. And
Yeah,
then
and it's okay,
the search and rescue team is contributing money to this as well.
Yeah. And it's both a crew access vehicle and a safety transportation vehicle for calls and responses. So, yeah. I'll move to authorize the city man. Are you okay to go ahead?
I just have one quick
Okay,
question. Okay, being a little facetious, the length is 136 inches, which is fine. That's over what I can purchase, right? I mean, because I think this is really pretty cool. I wouldn't mind having one of these. But we can't get anything that's 136 inches ourselves, correct?
I think this is an off-road vehicle anyway.
Yeah,
so
it's not
still wouldn't comply.
We can't ride it on this, God, it's really cool.
We went with the bigger one, so there was a two-seater, but the two-seater, we can only fit two and two in the back. This one, where at least two of my firemen, two paramedics can go and still have room for a patient and somebody else.
That's amazing, and it seemed really inexpensive to me, $30,000. Gosh, can't buy anything for $30K. Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
I'll move to authorize the city manager's designee to purchase a 2025 Honda Pioneer 1000 and a Medialite Transport Deluxe MTD 103 rescue bed for an amount not to exceed $35,000 from Capital Improvement Project number 234501, account number 10245-6871 from Huntington Beach Honda.
Second. I'll second it. Call for the vote.
All ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great vehicle.
Yeah.
This is really going to stuff me.
Especially
right
for
in.
the horse trail, that's going to be super helpful.
Stuff me right in
They
there.
can put you into the storage, yeah. You are small enough.
Okay, item number 7.
Okay, item number 7, medical cannabis delivery business permit application direction. As council recalls, back actually last year, we opened up the application process for the medical cannabis business, and we had that process open for a period of time. Upon conclusion of that deadline, council authorized us to open it up again, which we did from January 24th to March 10th, and again from March 3rd on March 21st at 4 p.m., which it closed. So at this point in time, we're simply asking council to give us some direction on how to proceed with the applications received.
And I would just note that under California law and cases that I've tried, that applications that are received late or incomplete cannot be considered. And that would, to do so, that would subject the city to a challenge on any action, would also be unfair for the applicant who's got their application complete in and on time. Which is why we recommended in the staff report that any late application be disregarded.
Council?
I have some things to say.
Sure. Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you, Scott. That's the letter of the law, and the council represents the spirit of the law. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here representing Catalina Cannabis Corp., and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on this agenda and to share the story behind my request. Tonight, I'm not asking for a permit to operate. I am respectfully requesting to be allowed to participate in the application process. I previously held the city-issued permit under the entity Catalina Connect, and I now am seeking to reestablish lawful operations under the new entity Catalina Cannabis Corp. I sent you guys an email with the technicalities that I had. I've had a lot of troubles, but when the prior permit was issued to Catalina Connect, I was proud of how the process went, and I handled every aspect of the application from regulatory compliance to operating plans personally and professionally. Although cannabis permits are issued to business entities rather than individuals, I'll never forget what the former city manager, whom I hold in high regard, said to me. And she said, "Do you know why you got the license?" And I replied kind of bashfully, "No." And she said, "It's because you knew your shit." And I stand here before you to tell you I still know my shit.
And she just
I am
walked in.
actively working with landlords to secure a compliant commercial location, and being allowed into the application process would strengthen my position in those negotiations. My operating model remains delivery only with no public or patient access, and I continue to follow all Department of Cannabis Control and Avalon Municipal Code requirements. Since the closure of my previous business, I've not only lost my livelihood, I've lost my marriage, my father, and even my reputation. I've had to fight to clear my name and rebuild my life. For the record, I do not engage in criminal activity. I did not damage anyone's property, and the image circulated did not tell the full story. And if a picture was worth 1,000 words, then a video would speak the truth and it would clear my name. Just yesterday, I buried a litter of newborn kittens. That's the kind of year I've been had. But I'm still here because this dream still matters to me. I've made profound sacrifices to stand here today, both personally and professionally, and I do so with nothing but integrity and purpose. All I'm asking tonight is for a fair opportunity to apply to prove that Catalina Cannabis Corp. Can serve Avalon with the same commitment, compliance, and community respect that I demonstrated before. If you have any questions,
Not at this point. Not at this time, I don't think.
I explained myself pretty well in the email, and I'd rather not.
Yes, we received all of those emails. Okay, council?
This is a tough one. I guess I'll speak up. Since, yeah. I think that personally, I always would prefer to err on the side of caution and allow people to apply. However, this instance, and Carl, I appreciate how much work and effort you've put into this and how much time and energy you put into this.
This whole program wouldn't be possible without me.
Right. The challenge I have is that we extended this application process multiple times, and this has nothing to do with this, but I was talking with someone just this week about how our community often seems to be a community of procrastinators, and I don't know where we get that from, but we are. It's the vehicle code for the vehicle licenses this week. There's still 400 people outstanding that need vehicle license stickers this week. It's in applying to things, and it's challenging because I will grant that there are a number of things that cause it to be challenging with regard to technology and other things that can make what should be an easy process difficult. We've all experienced that out here with different things happening and having stuff happen, but we've also extended this application window by multiple months. Not even just days or hours, but multiple months.
And in my defense, the first one wasn't publicly notified. I was in the meeting that day that it was supposedly put to council and I didn't even know that you guys were accepting applications for that first round.
Yeah, I think we've publicly noticed it the way that we always do. We've put information out, and again, this is part of the discussion I had actually with Recreation this week about communication, because they went to a conference and they were talking about how to get people to be engaged. And I've been banging my head against walls since I was in high school, trying to get people to be engaged. And everyone often says, or some people say, I've said it myself, oh, I didn't know about that. I wish I would have known. I would have gone. I would have participated.
I wish city staff would have reached out to me, the previous entity holder, and let me know, hey, are you submitting an application or something?
Yeah.
Because I've obviously had an interest.
Well, and I think part of city staff's role is to be fair and even across the board. And so part of that is in them reaching out to the same people or no people. It has to be everyone or no one. It can't be a hit and miss for them. I think, and I think Scott's kind of talked about this a little bit. The challenge I have is that I think I understand you're having a lot of things happen, and the circumstances of your application timing were tough.
But I was the only one issued a license. There was only one person to reach out to that had a potential interest. You can't determined that everyone else in town had an interest. You only had to reach out to one person because there was only one license before.
Right.
And
But I think we publicly announced it the way that we normally do any application
And just to be
process,
clear,
right?
I don't think there was any confusion about this particular deadline on this particular instance.
Right.
You know, prior, when it was closed, maybe, but this particular
Thank you, Dave.
deadline, on this particular instance, it was clear, January 21st.
Yes, and January 21st at 4:08, because I had printer issues, I submitted it.
I'm just saying that there was no confusion on who did or didn't know about that.
And even at that, then it was extended to March 21st.
Right.
The other situation, Carl, that I have is not seeing your application because it was incomplete.
So 8 minutes late because of a printer issue
And
is
not
gonna
complete
disqualify me.
and not complete from what I understand. The thing is, just when you came up earlier this evening, you said you wanted us to look at rezoning because that's where, if you got it, you would want to put your cannabis business because you feel it would be secure there. The thing is, I don't know that this council is going to say, let's rezone to make this not just.
But I'm also in negotiations with 2 commercial properties that.
No, but in the application, that had to be done at the
Right.
time.
Right.
So that is the problem that I have with being able to go forward with anything that you have at this point.
I'm 1 house away from the special commercial zone.
And
I'm not asking you to rezone anything. I'm just asking you to have the cannabis ordinance not be specific to commercial zones.
Well, let's talk to we have a city attorney on board. So city attorney, he would want to put that cannabis business is his home in a residential area, whether it be a mile from the commercial zone or right next door. What is your
But
thought?
Annie, that's, none of this is what
The
this
issue
is
is,
about.
the current application,
Right.
under procurement law, the current application says what the qualifications are, what it needed to be complete, and Mr. Johnson did not file a complete
Yes, I did.
application
Yes, I did.
on time that complied with the requirements of that application where it would be. The council has 2 options tonight. Council can either direct staff to proceed with the application that was filed timely and complete and make a determination if that application can go forward and bring, the proposed permit to the council, or the council, if it finds good cause as to why that application should be rejected, it can reject that application and start the process over. But you have to find a reason based upon, why you would reject that application that was timely filed and complete. Those are your 2 legal options.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's about this.
I understand.
To me, it would be unfair to that entity that put in their application on time. Mr. Johnson's had ample time to do this, and that the application came in incomplete after 4 o'clock. To those people that actually did it the right way, and I don't mean to sound crass, but I get
with all due
tired.
respect, what did I not do the right way?
I get tired.
What did I not do the right way?
I get tired of rewarding bad behavior.
What bad behavior?
You did not get your application.
I had an operating plan, and
You did not get your completed application in on time. The other people did. And at some point, you need to take responsibility that you
I am
messed it
taking
up.
responsibility. I submitted an operating plan that was my operating draft. That was just my outline. It was 4 pages, and my actual application referenced page 14 and page 24 of an operating plan. So when I attached an operating plan that was only 4 pages, I had the real operating plan that was 33 pages. I had it all done. I was waiting for my business associate who signed the application at 3:45 p.m. the day of. That's what I was waiting for. I had everything in order. So what did I do wrong? That's what I submitted at 4:08. I contacted city staff and I was telling them of my situation. And they were aware I was coming up here. I still came up here with the check. I made every effort with good faith to get it here on time. And it was stamped at 4:08.
I just want to make it clear, it was not 4:08. The initial application that was incomplete was filed at 4:08. After that time, you have filed additional documents related to that application.
I submitted
days
the
following.
actual operating plan upon discovery when Devin reached out to me on Monday, yesterday.
I didn't actually hear that.
Which was the 31st, 10 days later.
So does he have all the necessary paperwork in
I do.
now?
Excuse me.
I do.
It's been 10
No,
days.
he doesn't have a sign.
I was just asking.
Yeah, he doesn't have a sign.
So city staff did not receive the final operating plan until 2 p.m. today, and I haven't had a chance to go and double check with our checklist to make sure that everything was in compliance, because we were going to wait for your approval.
I think it's hard for me to move forward, and obviously I think he's doing a great job and he is very passionate about it, and the circumstances that he's under, I feel for all of them. I understand them. It's just hard to sit up here, and this is also, my job when I'm seeing a pattern of not having someone that I can rely on to meet the deadlines. We moved with good faith a couple times in the beginning, and even with the people that did turn it in, they also moved forward with good faith, saying, yes, let's open it up for him. And then we sit in the same spot again.
And me
That's,
closing down
I
previous
honestly
operations
don't
in
want to
good
argue
faith
about
is
it.
not-
That's
it
just
doesn't
how I
count for
feel
anything.
about
Excuse me.
moving forward with, even if it's not Carl, if somebody did the same thing, I would still stand on this. It's just the principle of not feeling
Damned if you
comfortable
do,
moving
damned if you
forward when
don't.
something's not turned in on time.
Famous words of my father.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to make the finding that the city received one complete application for the medical cannabis delivery services business permit by the stated deadline, March 21st, 2025, at 4 p.m. 2, make the affirmative finding to reject an incomplete application received after the stated deadline.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And second, call for the vote.
See you guys in 90 days.
All ayes.
Okay. Item number 8.
Item number 8, we're looking to award a contract to replace the piles at the Green Pleasure Pier and Club Dinghy Dock. Mr. Greenland.
Good evening again, council. As I said before in the department head report, we did receive bids yesterday. 2 bids on this intro page here. You can see the 2 different projects. We have the Green Pleasure Pier. We've been working on that for over 4 years trying to get permits, and we did take one small project on an emergency permit to get 5 piles done previously 2 years ago. This one is a more robust project to be able to get both fender piles and structural piles done and try to do it. What we found out 2 years ago was the mobilization costs were, very high. And so how do we do that and get the most value? Because it was like $50,000 a pile the last time we did it. How do we get more value? And so what we were trying to do is get more piles done with the mobilization, So that's the way that we set up this project. And then also, while we're out here, and this time around, we're not going to be on the deck for the most part. There may be some support work from the deck, but we're going to be on a barge, somewhat similar to what we did when the fuel dock was rebuilt out there. We're going to be out on a barge out in the ocean and around the pier so that we're not hampering the activities that are on the pier during this time. So you see the 2 locations there. This is more specifically, this is where all the dots are where the piles will be replaced. Okay, so we'll actually remove the piles and attempt to remove them from the seafloor. If they're not able to be removed from the seafloor, we'll cut them below the mud line, and then we'll put another pile in right adjacent to it. So, and I believe 6 of those are fender piles. So those are the piles on the outside of the pier that are up against the floats. So they're the ones that the floats rest up against, and they also protect the structural piles. So if the floats went in and took the structural piles are what is supporting the load from the pier. That's big beams, we call them the pile caps, and that's what the pier rests on, and then it transfers all the way down into the seafloor. The piles go down approximately 20 feet into the seafloor as they're driven. And you can see those red rectangles there. Those are the location potential barge locations that as we stage this, and so you can see we still can keep everything in operation. We just have to move things around. We'll be focusing early on the very end of the pier so that we can get the infloat back in time. And then we'll be moving that barge around. So one of those 5 locations, trying to be an efficient operation, hopefully get on one side of the pier, get all that done, get the end done, and then go to the other side of the pier. And then the last piece of work would be the club dock. And so the pier bid packages we had, which was the base bid. So under our California public contract law, we have to base a public bid on a base bid. So we select the contractor based on a bid. So you'll always hear based on the low bid. And so we've got to put something together so we can select the contractor, and then we can do some things after that. Or we can then put additive bids in, or if there's some negotiation we have to do, but we first have to select the contractor. And it has to be very clear and very transparent how you're going to do that. And so that's how we put Pier Package 1, that was 6 piles. And then incrementally what we were trying to do was add pier packages so that we could present to city manager and to council, here we are, when we do and add another package, this is additional cost, and are we getting our value out of that additional package? Is the price per pile going down as you're seeing that one mobilization? And that's why, as we go further into the slideshow here, you'll see that the mobilization was pulled out and all the bonding was pulled out, so you could see the true cost of the piles. And then Pier Package 3, 5 piles, and Pier Package 4, 6 piles. And so this is the club dock and gangway replacement. So we're at the clubs between the yacht club and the tuna club. And this is a pier, okay? So the total length of this is about 80 feet. And this pier, which you see is horizontal, will now be replaced by a ramp. So, and under ADA law, we need to go 80 feet when we're in a harbor. So something that the tides are changing. After we've gone 80 feet, then we comply with ADA. So that's why our ramp is 80 feet. So even if it goes down and it's a little steeper than the slope needs to be for something to be ADA, it complies with ADA law because they realize that the tides are fluctuating. So that's you'll see that big change, and that'll rest on a new float, a big float that will support, because that ramp is heavier than the small ramp that we had, and there'll be a new set of docks that go along with that float. And so this is the location of that, and you can see the array of dinghies around the existing facility, and you can see that pier out there, and then a small, very steep ramp that at low tides, you're struggling to get down. So that'll all be a ramp, okay? And this is just an exhibit of showing how the barge would set up to be able to remove the concrete on the seafloor, because we're getting credit for that on our permits, that we're removing all the concrete that the existing piles are attached to. And then instead of having 4 piles, we only have two piles. And those piles are going to have motors on them so that we can lift this ramp so it doesn't get removed during storms. It just gets lifted up with 2 motors up the piles. And the piles are steel piles with concrete inside them, so they're very stout. And let's see, anything else? And to the right there, that picture up the right, that is Casino Way, and that's the mass of concrete that we're going to take out Casino Way, the pavers there, and then put the pavers back on. But that total area behind what is the wall that holds up the roadway, and then down into the, this is the seawall here, is going to be a chunk of concrete about 5 feet deep and all the way back. And so that's what the ramp that we're attaching, that 80 feet long, that takes, that ocean energy sometime, the wave energy, it's going to be attached there to a very stout block of concrete. So the dinghy dock package was taking advantage of a singular mobilization, so we're getting the bang for the buck, not just for more pile packages, but also for another whole project. And this work will be funded with its own capital project, about $500,000, 24-25, but also has $300,000 in grant funding from the Division of Boating and Waterways. And we regularly get grants from them. We're always pursuing grants, and we're pursuing a grant even for South Beach. We just try to get at least one that we're always working on. Okay, base bid. So it's to be awarded on the base bid, and we had 2 bid schedules. We had an early base bid scheduled, so be done with the pile work by Memorial Day. Some other little small work can happen even after that, but they've got to be able to work around the visitors, but at least the pile driving the barge and all that's gone by Memorial Day. So we put that out there. Then we had 2 other bidders that were very involved. We had like 54 questions. As you see, the agenda packet had a lot of questions. And they were very engaged in this, and we didn't want to lose those bidders. But they didn't have any piles in stock, whereas one of the bidders did. So we said, okay, let's consider having 2 schedules, and are we going to get any difference in price in that? So we had those 2 schedules plus all those bid additives. Became kind of a pretty complex, to be able to get all that done. So the results, what they revealed is the JILC had the early base bid schedule of $362, $310. So that was a base bid. Had the same price for the, so no difference. They could do it either time. Whereas we said the bid was fully responsive if you couldn't bid on the first schedule, but you put a bid in the second schedule. And so Connolly did not bid on the first schedule because they didn't have the piles. They didn't have the materials in hand, and you can see that they were a higher bid on that. So JILC ended up being low bid on both. So then this was the full bid tabulation, and I can just put out just a few interesting facts you can see, because this was a very interesting bid, that you can see that, like I said, that Connolly was the same bid early or late, and they were lower. So they were the low bidder. That's who we based our bid, and that's who we would recommend to award. But also, the total cost JILC was lower, okay? So that tells us we're getting the value. We're not making a mistake there if we award everything. So then we go, we can look at the base bid items too. Under the bid amounts for JILC, in that first column, I've got everything that is like 100. It's the same base bid, is what I'm saying there for either schedule in that first column under the first 3 items, and then we base that versus Connolly's bid, and you can see that it was much higher there. So under those 3 items. Let's see what, and so you can just go over even the additive items, and the way that if you look at, the only 2 things we have to compare is the alternate bid schedule, which is the middle column under JILC, and then the right column under Connolly Pacific alt bid schedule. If you go like an item, line 4 there, it says there's a $51,000 bid from Connolly and a $40,000 something from JILC. So they're cheaper under that item. And then you can just go down. So the only one that was different was Club Dock package, and it was, not by much. And so all the way along, JILC, you could see this, what really the story is. JILC, we have the value. So recommending that we go forward with that, you're seeing that you're getting the value, that actually this was a very good bid for as quick as it was, that we're getting this value and they can do it this quick. So that gets us to the recommendation here. We're recommending that you award a contract to Joke Construction for the entire scope. And you can see that we've added another $161,000 contingency there because we are out of the ocean. Last time Joke was here, they were right on budget, no contract. But, we got a little bit bigger scope of work and we just don't want to have to come back. So this is something we should be doing with every project. We have the funds right now. Sometimes we're squeezing it so tight to get every one of these projects in. So we're asking for that contingency. And then we'll ask the second item is we adjust the budget here, allocating $600,000 for the replacement of the deck of the surface of Pier, and then to the project for pile replacement. So we had two projects, and they were both the Green Pier, both out of the same funding source, and we're just combining it. We put two projects there. We didn't know how they were going to go. That's a holding spot so that we can keep on working on those projects. And this was the first one to go. So we'll feed some more funds in. We'll be asking to feed more funds in the next capital budget to replace that. So that's what's in front of you tonight. Any questions that I can answer for you?
I have a question. So it seems like when we were reinforcing the dinghy dock, there was discussion about shouldn't we have steel with piles and concrete and things like that? And again, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I heard some of the old timers would say, man, they really should be steel pilings and blah, 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 blah. But I don't know if cost was the factor on that, but can you talk?
So for the fuel dock, that's the question back, that was the factor back then.
I'm sorry?
For the fuel dock is the question.
Yeah, because we ended up putting timber there and not steel. Did we do that because it was more expensive? Is that why we did that? And would it not be better if we had steel piles with concrete there on the pier as well?
So I believe we would be probably starting over again with the Green Pier if we started with concrete piles in there.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding people at the podium today.
Okay, so I think we'd be starting over if we started with placing concrete piles. What we're trying to do is it's like for like, and so that was a different story on the fuel dock. There was initially designed with concrete-driven piles, and the wood piles definitely don't last as long as the concrete, but the issue out at the fuel dock was they were not founded into the seafloor. They were not driven in because I think the design team back then, when they did that, they found that when Sugarloaf, the rock that was out there by the casino, when they used dynamite to blow that up, they put that rock fall right where the fuel dock was. So there would have been some very difficult driving, and there was lack of money. If you go back into that action taken by council, I think it was they were short $1 million. So they redesigned the whole fuel dock, and that's what we ended up with. Okay. We are putting driven wood piles in, and yes, they will at some point not have as long a life as concrete piles.
Yeah. But concrete would be much, much more expensive.
Much more expensive, and the connections and all that. So we were just trying to get another 50 years of life out of it at this point.
I understand. Okay, thank you. Council, what's your pleasure?
I just wanted to say thank you for providing the side-by-side on the bid tabulations. That really helped. Last night, the discussion about, I was curious if there was an issue with the lower bid having an issue with then having to go over because of contingency, and hearing both Jill Kevy having been on budget and on time in previous projects here, so they're well experienced with the island in general, but then also just seeing the main portion of that difference was that mobilization, which I would assume they would have, because they've done it before, they would have the ability to judge that properly for this time. So with that, I'll make a motion to award a contract to the lowest responsible bidder to complete the scope of work identified by city staff for the Green Pleasure Pier Pile Program, RFP 180049-B.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
All ayes.
If we could just take a couple-minute break, that would be great. The restrooms are there, and I think there might be some water in that little water fountain thing. Okay.
There it is.
Okay.
All right, so with regards to item number 8, this is an updated, I read an out-of-date recommendation for the action. So the updated action is to award a contract to Jilk Heavy Construction for the entire scope of work specified in the RFP for a not-to-exceed sum of $1.3 million from Green Pier Repair Fund 10470-6547, project number 247004, and Club Dinghy Dock Replacement Project Fund 10470-6547, project number 207002, and then 2, to adjust the fiscal year 2024-25 CIP budget by consolidating project 247004 and allocating $600,000 for the replacement of the deck surface of the pier to project 180049 for pile replacement.
And who seconded that last time?
I'll second it. Does it matter?
Okay.
Do I second? Do I have to?
Yes, please.
Second, I second.
Okay. Call for the vote.
All ayes.
Thank you. Okay, item number 9.
Okay, item number 9 is a revisiting, bringing back the discussion regarding revisions to Article 3, Chapter 1 of Title 3 of the Avalon Municipal Code, modifying the transient rental license system. So this is what I would categorize, I guess, as the first step to maybe the final path to get us to the point in time where we can end the moratorium and institute some regulations and a plan going forward. And we're going to go through a little bit here of what what we've been able to do during the period of moratorium. And I just want to say that we kind of really operating with two overriding factors as we looked at this. Number one, that short-term rentals and the TOT that's derived from them are extremely important to what we do here as a city, and they fund so many of our operations. So we look at that, from that level, but we also look at it, the other overriding factor that we kept hearing over and over again is that available affordable housing is also critical for the future viability of the city. Now, both of those things we think are extremely true and accurate, but they're not diametrically opposed, meaning, I think as we work through this, simply if we say house number A, you cannot short-term rent, does not mean that we can force that house into a long-term rental. We know that. One does not equal the other. So as we work through this, we kept both of those things in mind because we kept hearing from the residents, we need to do a better job. We need to increase affordable housing, which we agree with, and we need to do a better job regulating these short-term rentals, which we agree with. I'm going to see if I can, do I need to, from a presentation standpoint, Devin, do I need to? Oh, okay. So first of all, and I'm not going to completely go through the staff report and read everything, but again, I think if you look at the survey that we conducted, the survey is very consistent with those two principles, that being the most important factors are impacts on affordable housing and penalties for not enforcing the existing regulations kept coming up, consistent in the survey, consistent in the emails and letters the city received throughout this process. So where we're at now, I think what we want to do is begin the process and start twofold, first with City Council and then with the Planning Commission, and present regulations to strengthen our ability as a city to revoke properties and hold properties that do have short-term rentals really to the standards that you would expect your neighbor if your neighbor lived in that house. That being modify the regulatory guidelines to implement a revocation process and policy based on non-compliance with the city's noise ordinance and the responsiveness of the property manager to complaints, city policies regarding trash, parking, etc. So what we have are a series of regulations that we want to initially present to planning because we believe that's within their purview to make those recommendations to council that would give us the ability to enforce that going forward. And as you'll see and what we'll discuss, part of the problem with the enforcement end of this is so many of these complaints came in after hours, Friday nights, Saturday nights, when we don't have code enforcement on. So we recognize we're going to have to spend additional funds in order to have a 24/7, if we go with a 24/7 online call, so there is a live person at the other end of the phone that can handle the situation. And we have that ability with our current provider at an additional cost, and we'll talk about that. The next step that we talked about is a proposal to increase an annual fee for the short-term rentals. And we have not landed on what our recommendation will be for that fee, but we think we are recommending a two-tier system, one being a lower fee for properties that rent less than 20 days a year and a fee for properties that rent in excess of 20 days a year. The real crux of this fee that we feel would be a portion of that fee, in addition to accurately recouping the city's costs for both finance time, code time, increase in fees, regulation, and enforcement, would be to have a portion of that fee included for inclusionary housing. As we look through where short-term rentals land as compared, for example, to a hotel. Hotels have staff, they have employees, they have inclusionary housing requirements that come with them. Short-term rentals don't have that. By increasing that fee, it would go into the inclusionary housing fee that the city would maintain. We would maintain that fee to both add, increase, and purchase housing for that I would call available affordable housing that we can make, and that solves, or that starts us down this path to solving that other problem. Of being able to create that account. So what we would recommend, and finance would have to go through the process of determining exactly what the fee would be to capture the city's cost. We think there's a difference between the short-term rentals that rent more than 20 times a year versus 20, as far as the impact on code, the impact on the sheriff's department, the impact on our responses. So that's why there would be a difference in that fee. Our next consideration is to modify the reservation and check-in process. We have regulations we want to present to planning that would require all online short-term rental postings to include the City of Avalon's business license number. This will make this extremely more efficient for us to track these going forward compared to what we just went through over the last year and a half trying to track what we currently have on the books. And also require the online property manager to meet the guests and review the city's regulations with the guests, and to have a face-to-face with those guests. Right now, if you have a code, you simply punch in. You're not sure if there's 4 people going in that house or 20 people going in that house. We think the face-to-face gets us back to where Avalon has a long history of with vacation rentals, where they come here, the people that are actually going in the property.
I'm sure you probably don't want me to interrupt at this point, but there also on number 5 was that the property managers also have a business license, because there's a number of John Does that are managing, and CIVR and Hamilton Cove have business licenses, but those other folks don't.
Yes, and what we have found is the Hamilton Cove property manager and the CIVR, they do this is their business, they're very responsive, but they don't have every property. So yes, we would have the property manager, and that will be part of the system, the overall system for reporting complaints. It's going to be online. So, part of the other complaints that we have received is people say, I have, down the street from me, there was a party, it was a party house, but I didn't feel comfortable walking up on the front porch and squinting and looking to see what the phone number was to call. But if we put it online, it's simply knowing the address, they can go there, they can call that property manager. But really what we want to have is they'll call the 24/7 number, who will also have our list. They will contact the property manager, they will document, we call them at 12:02 a.m., and if they don't respond within 30 minutes, we get those reports Monday morning, we can document it, we have verification that there was a violation of that ordinance. So we feel that by putting in these regulations, we're going to get better tenants, because really the vast majority of our short-term rental owners and tenants are good. I mean, they really are. It's the ones that that come in and have the party for the weekend, and if it's next to you, it doesn't matter if everybody else is good. It's that one drives you crazy for the weekend, and we get that, and we heard a lot of that. So, Mayor, that is something that we are recommending too. The next item is we kicked around the idea of a cap, saturation limits, percentage limits, every possible way. The idea of having a saturation limit or a percentage based on neighborhood, based on area, became very, very difficult. We're not that big. We have roughly 2,100 residential units in the city. We looked at this more from having, if there is a cap, to establish a citywide cap. The citywide cap would establish a maximum number of short-term rentals in Avalon by resolution. This resolution, we would recommend it comes back to council, whether it's every 2 years, every year, at the request of council, for review to assure that the city, that we're balancing the need to preserve affordable housing with the benefit of the short-term rentals. Again, we view it's going to be a number overall for the city versus a percentage for any given street or the neighborhood. The other part of this, and the big part of this that we've learned through both the vehicle waiting list, is establishing waiting list policy before we establish the waiting list. We've learned some good lessons, right, from the vehicle waiting list, and I think we can do a better job. We have some ideas of doing that. We would ask for once the waiting list is established, to have a touch point, whether it's a $5 annual renewal fee, just to make sure every year we have somebody contacting us saying, yes, I still want to be on that waiting list, here's my contact information, or it changed. So as we get down the road, we don't lose track of people or have to try to track them down. In addition, we'll address all the issues with whether or not you can transfer your waiting list position, whether it runs with the person or the property, and whether or not if you come off the waiting list, if you have to take it or you can stay, you can pass on your turn. So we would make recommendations. If there's a cap, we have to have a waiting list and a policy. So how do we establish the cap? As we walk through this, as you know, the city has these different buckets of these short-term rentals. Initially we started conducting the analysis through business license database and transient rental license records. And then determined that there was much more to it than that, because there's records in Planning Commission, there's records of grandfathered. So this is where we're at as of today, and we feel pretty confident in this number, that there are 373 properties with transient rental business licenses. Of those, 260 are CUPs, the vast majority. 29 of them are TRLs, and the other 84 are grandfathered in. So they're grandfathered well before this process began. And the term grandfather has not been defined and is not defined. So we don't know whether or not those grandfathered have CUPs, which they don't. They just have been grandfathered in, that they were vacation rentals before any of this process started, and they were allowed to continue to operate that way. So we really have to dig deeper into the grandfathered as we go through, and our view of it is that if you are a grandfathered property and you've been operating as a vacation rental or a short-term rental continuously, and you've been filing your business license and filing your TOT, you should have every right to continue. You've been carrying on that previously existing non-conforming use. But there are some that were grandfathered, as the term was used when it originally started, that haven't done any of that historically. So we don't know whether or not they even believe that they have the ability to do this. They might not know, some of those property owners. So, before we can really establish this cap, we have to go through the process and start looking at revocation of some of those existing ones that have not utilized their previous existing use. And that's a process that's going to take some time, but they have the right, and we should give them that opportunity to do it. So establishing the cap, just briefly, I want to acknowledge Amanda in the entire finance department, but Amanda really took a lot of this on. Donna in planning, and Devin with my office did a lot of work to go through 40 years of historical records. in order to make sure we found every property that was discussed as far as a short-term rental. And through this process, staff has identified, as I indicated, there are 62 properties that obtained a CUP and under various circumstances, but they have not actively held a business license. They have not turned in TOT. We have no indication they've even rented, but there's a CUP attached to their property. So we have to explore those and see if those are, what the status of those are.
And we have not sent anything out to those folks?
At this point, no.
Okay.
No. In addition, staff identified 31 grandfather properties that have not maintained their conforming use status, like I just talked about. So our feeling is that those 31, we can start the revocation process on those. So, you know, here's the buckets that we have, right? TRLs, CUPs, grandfathered. And the difference is the TRLs must be renewed annually. These were all in 2021 when it changed. They're not transferable and they're issued to an individual, whereas the CUPs were all issued between 94 and 2021. They're a land use entitlement, and since 2021, when the new regulations went into effect, those CUPs can only be transferred once, and then once they're transferred, the buyer then loses their right to transfer it the second time. And then the grandfathered ones were properties renting short-term or vacation rentals prior to 1994. They're permitted by code as a non-conforming use because those grandfathered ones were not necessarily granted a CUP, which went with the land and was filed. So they're under that third bucket as we identified there. So where are we at? As I indicated, we have 373 that are currently hold business license and operate, but they all don't operate the same. We have many that operate and just rent intermittently or to family, friends, and you can see here on this chart, some that have 0 months of filing TOT and no indication on host compliance that they're renting. 34 of those. And the idea with this is, you know, the 22 CUP, people want them, they want to maintain it, it makes their property more valuable to sell, so they maintain their CUP, but they're not using it as a short-term rental. But those that only filed for 1 to 3 months, you can see there's 51 of those. I want to draw your attention to the bottom line, which is the average rent generated column. So what we know through data that I've received from the chamber is that the average rental for a short-term rental in Avalon is $550 a night. So if you look at those that are renting 1 to 3 months, you know, reporting 1 to 3 months, and average rent generated is $3,500, that's roughly 7 nights in a 3-month period that they're renting their property. It's not a big impact when you think of the other ones, because when you go all the way to the 10 to 12 months, the $90,000 average, those are folks that are renting 165 nights a year. Much different than those that are renting 7 nights a year. So that's why we think the 2-tier system has some justification and has some merit. So what's next? Where we want to go? So like I said, the last element, I guess, that we have on this is since we instituted the moratorium just a little over 2 years, or a little under 2 years ago, we only have 12 properties that have submitted applications that are on a current wait list that we did not process. So we have 12 properties, and the way we view those 12 properties is they submitted their application or acquired their property either right before the moratorium went in place or during the moratorium. So I don't know if there was an expectation or a belief or understanding that the moratorium would be lifted. They'd have an opportunity to participate and appear before planning to have the opportunity to rent their properties. But I think we have to address those 12 that are out there. Because I think if we address the 12 that are out there, my recommendation would be if we give them their day to appear in front of Planning Commission and apply for a short-term rental, this would put us in a position to enact the regulations and adopt a hard cap with a defined wait list policy, because the wait list policy would go into effect after the cap was in place, and right now we don't have that wait list policy. So if you look at that, we have 373 total, all of them not active. These 12 would put us at 385 total. I think by the time this would come back to council from Planning Commission, we would be able to start and move through the revocation period pretty quickly. Our goal is to have a large bundle of these for revocation in front of Planning Commission in the May Planning Commission meeting. We get our notices out and start revoking some of those that are on there. The ones that are currently operating and in good standing would be able to continue. The 12 that have been filed since the moratorium would be in place. We could start that process of moving those forward before the Planning Commission for a decision one way or another. So what we would do is, we also have a bunch that we know are renting, but they're not in compliance with city code, whether it's not having a business license and not filing TOT. We would also start the revocation on those properties too. Our goal would be to get to a number that the properties that are out there, we know that they're short-term rentals, they're operating, they're in compliance, we bring them in compliance and we move forward. And the ones that are in this gray area, whether they believe they're banked or they believe they have the ability to do it at some point, those are the ones that are more worrisome that we can go after, because while they're not operating now, if they sell their property, the potential is they could go on the books and start operating. So we have to address those.
And where do those other 62 and 31 show up?
So,
didn't you say something about some other people?
So we have 62 properties that have obtained a CUP, okay, meaning that they, at some point in time between 1994 and 2021, appeared before Planning Commission, applied and received a CUP. But these properties have do not have an active business license, and they are not remitting any TOT. So they're not in compliance.
Okay, so we had 84 are grandfathered, and then in addition, staff identified 31 grandfathered properties have not maintained their non-conforming use status. That's totally different than the 84, or in addition to?
That is different than the 84.
Okay, okay.
So
those numbers could be high.
Right, and that's the problem with the numbers. It's if we look at, and I think it's very important to look at this chart here, which really tells us the number, that are renting for 4 months or more, on a regular basis, is really in the 287 range. Those are the number of short-term rentals that we have that are operating on a regular basis. The ones that are below that are really operating so infrequently. There's 7 nights or less that they're operating. So those are the ones that we're focusing on. And like I said, I think there's a solid balance for us to reach without, that would include a cap. I do believe, the more you go down this path, you would like the hope that the market balances itself out and that would control how many would be here, but I'm not so sure of that. I think a cap makes sense. But, we really want to be in a position and go through the revocation process and deal with where we're at that point in time. Because what we might find, and we're not making the recommendation yet, but what we might find is that there is a process where we come back and say, there might be some value in allowing people to bank them. Right now, we're not making that recommendation because to allow somebody to bank a CUP creates an unknown for us. It's not operating now, so we don't know what the impact is, but it could operate in the future. And that unknown is the one that creates a little bit of a problem. So, I guess where we're at tonight is just, I'm very curious, council and any residents' input of where we're at to date, but the goal would be that we, staff, would present, and the reason I'm doing this way is, when we first brought this up to Planning Commission had indicated that, they kicked around last time this came up in 2021. They explored all options with a cap and saturation limits and everything and made recommendations to council, and they felt ultimately that's the council's decision. if there's a cap. So I would look for council to give input on the cap, and then planning commission would make recommendations as it relates to the regulations.
Okay, I just have another comment or question. So what would keep me then, if I have year-round renters in there, and now I realize we're going to put a cap on, and I can evict my tenants and apply for a CUP?
Well, you couldn't get a CUP. You can't get CUPs anymore. So
I mean TRLs.
You can get a TRL, but that would go through. But if you had a short term, then you have to have a vacant. There's still the language in the current code.
You can't just evict somebody.
2 year, yeah.
And if there's still that 2-year wait?
Yes.
Okay.
That's currently on the books, and we've looked at that if to incentivize long-term rentals of people. And I think one of the options that we would look at, that if you are in that tier 1 category, meaning you rent less than 7 days a year or 20 times a year, a lot of times that might be because you have a long-term renter in there. And we would recommend language in there that if you have a long-term tenant in there and you file the lease with the city, we'll waive that $250 fee or whatever the fee is, because we want to encourage that. We certainly don't want to discourage that.
Would anybody like to speak? Or do you want to hear what we're saying first, or what's up? Okay. Council? Oh, questions, okay. Right, to the podium, please.
It's a really easy question. This is Lindsay Mattingly, 115 Olive Street. Do you have any idea what the total number of units are in the town and what percentage?
So we have 2,100, roughly 2,100 residential units in the city. So if you, I won't do the math on 373, but do the math on 400. Say we had 400 short-term rentals. We have less than that, but if we had 400, that would be a little less than 20%.
Okay.
20% is 2,100.
17.7%.
420.
All right, and then the banked people that aren't paying any, is the business license cost money? Does that make money for you guys? Is that part of the deal, or?
Currently, the business license is 5350, Matt. Is that number right? Okay, so it's not, we're not living off business license. And that's what we're saying is the banked ones, there's only one real method to bank one of these, and that's if you have a CUP. So it's before 2020, when you have the CUP and you have a lease of a long-term tenant on file with the planning department. That's the only codified way to bank them.
Okay, so maybe the business fee could cost more too. And well, my question was, I was just thinking if the bank people should have to pay some kind of fee, because when they sell their property is going to be worth, I don't know, we got some realtors here.
50 to 100,000 more.
50 to 100,000 more. Those properties are worth 50 to 100,000 more, so they should be paying some kind of money to the city to keep that ability to keep those, because eventually it's going to be a lot of profit for them.
I mean, under the proposal, a banked property would be a tier 1 property, so they would pay a fee in the neighborhood of $250 a year rather than the 53, which would cover the inclusionary housing portion of it in addition to the city costs. I mean, that number still has to be formulated, but it would be the lower fee as compared to what they're currently paying.
Yeah, if I could just address that point, any fees for these rentals have to be based upon our estimate of the city's cost of administering the program. And there may be different costs for certain types of these properties, but it has to be based on to recover the city's cost in implementing the program.
Well,
so as much as it may make sense to, be able to charge people much more because they're going to sell the property for a huge profit, we're not allowed to do that. It's got to be based on recovering the city's cost for implementation of the program.
Well, I was thinking that's going to make it so much harder for you to set that cap, knowing that, you have these 60-something people out there that could sell at any time. It seems like houses are selling more. People are aging out here or something, because I have more friends that come up to me and frantically say, do you know any place to rent? I'm going to lose my housing. When you say inclusionary housing, what kind of, you would purchase housing with these fees, and you would use them for city employees, or?
Well, the goal would be to establish a fund so we could start looking at that. The city has a couple housing projects we're working on, but funding of those projects is always an issue.
Yeah, because you know who I'm going to ask for, of course, teachers.
Teachers.
So
right.
if you could somehow work in inclusionary housing for teachers, that would be my request. So, but you're right. You're going to have some. It's going to be hard to find places to buy, and you're going to have to ask for a lot more money to be able to afford for it.
Right.
So afford it. Okay, thanks.
But Lindsay, I'd like to revisit the whole percentage. So we have, what did we say, 2,100 residential dwelling units in this town? But you can't count an ADU, which I know there's only a handful, because those can't be short-term rentals. So, so that stays in. But low-income housing, Bird Park, all of that kind of stuff, those are not in the mix. Those kind of places
eligible to be.
Yeah, they're not able to be. So if you look at the available housing stock, so subtract all of those guys from the 2,100, and the available housing stock that can be short-term rentals, what is that percentage? So I don't know how many units are involved in all of that.
Well, there's people, you could call it housing stock. If I owned my home, but I wasn't here often, that it could be considered housing stock, right? The fact that I chose to keep it empty and use it when I want and not rent it out, that's housing stock?
Yeah, we're just talking about residential units.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Mary's exactly right.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I was going to say. It seems like a lot of people just have houses here that use it 2 or 3 times a year themselves and then never rent it out in any capacity, because there's a lot of empty houses, except at Christmas and Thanksgiving. So
We can't force them to use their places.
No.
We can't force them to rent them.
No.
And is it possible to get to see the host compliance online? Do they have a map that because I found one in Sonoma that was just killer, and it's public, but you can see they have dots where all the vacation rentals are and stuff like that. And
yeah, we have, going through this exercise, we do have a map where we have done the same thing, placed a dot on where the vacation rentals are. So, I mean, we can get you that. We distributed that last time around, but we can get you
can
that.
it just be on the website or something, and I don't know. I don't know what the legalities are of that.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I think it's interesting to be able to go back and visit it from time to time, and like with the electronics that are available today, could it be in real time, So it's like if somebody sells their place or they lose their TRL or whatever, the dot goes away.
I like the idea of transparency, but I also like protecting people whose homes may not be occupied all the time from people on the inline knowing that their homes are not occupied all the time.
Good point.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it might be beneficial for us to have information just to see where those units are. But the other interesting point, Lindsay, to your question too, was Catalina Island Foundation actually offered short stay housing for the teachers to be able to stay in, and none of them took us up on the offer.
Oh, yeah.
Which is challenging, and the part that I think is challenging is it's because they have lives over town.
Exactly.
They have family over town, they have homes over town. So I agree that we need to be able to offer that for people who are willing to come and move here permanently and stay here, but also having some units specifically for teachers may not necessarily solve the issue we're hoping it will solve, which is one of the fun learning aspects of this too.
You mean you offered short-term, like if they wanted to spend a night here and there?
Correct. So like, for instance, there's been how many days of school that have been impacted by the boat cancellations?
A lot.
Right. So saying you can come stay in this house 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, 2 nights a week, it would be $50 for the cleaning fee. And nobody's taken us up on the offer so far. I'm hoping that changes, but...
Well, I heard that they did request a couple of weeks ago that Emma asked, people to stay, and they ended up staying in hotels. I don't know if they know about that.
Yeah.
Because they ended up staying in hotels and paying like $100 a night.
Yeah.
to stay here.
Yeah, so it's a
So-
work in progress, but anyway, I hear your comment and suggestion for that for sure, so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Hall?
Hi, Janny Hall, 334 Clarissa. I was just curious, was in the mix of our the data, did we limit the numbers of CUP or licenses you can apply for, take out? And I mean, as I recall, when right before the moratorium, there were some people, well-to-do people encouraged by realtors to buy several homes. And each of them could, you know, there were no limits to.
Are you saying one individual, the limit of one individual?
10 homes.
Okay, no, there currently is none. That's also an item of consideration. It was brought up a number of times to cap, you know, how many times, you know,
Yeah.
how many properties one individual or one entity could own. Yes.
Yeah, I would like to look at other cities, especially like Long Beach seems to have some good handles on this. But it just seemed like we don't talk about our housing market as housing for locals or working people. It's more like hedge fund, land speculation, or, you know, it can flip and people can get very wealthy. So that just was, I think, limiting that to a specific number. I guess that could be involved with a cap.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the items that has come up and has been discussed, so it'll be discussed with planning.
Okay, great.
Janny, by the way, that's one item that I particularly am in major favor of. One, it's a small town, you know, and you come here and you make a house an ATM for you, you can have one. If you want to have more, go to another town. Go to Big Bear.
Yeah, I don't know how we, that would be a question for the attorney too, is how do you regulate that? Because I've got a daughter and I've got a son and I've got a da-da-da-da-da, you know, and how.
Well, right, I mean,
You know,
I agree.
I don't-
It's a big sticky wicket,
It
and
is.
people change names, and they have, you know, trusts, and then they hide names, and they blah, blah, blah. I know, people are very, 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 very clever. I get that, but seriously, you know, in a town this size, I don't see why, you know, we should allow people to have 5 properties and never live there. I mean, strictly as vacation rentals. I don't think that is good for our community. I'm not saying ban them all, okay? Don't, calm down. You have to go to the mic.
Yeah,
You
go
have to
ahead.
go to the
But
mic.
go ahead, we'll listen to your comment. Okay, thanks, okay. All righty.
You know, and my only response to that would be, I understand that point, but, you know, part of what we saw is, as I mentioned earlier, when you talk about the folks that manage them, the Hamilton Co's and the CIVRs, they do a much, much better job because they are doing it as a business, you know, when they manage it. So, you know, the people that might have more than one, if we're talking about a cap rather than how many an individual can have, an individual that has more than one that's doing it as a business, I think you'd find the same thing. They're treating it as a business. They're taking care of their property. They're maintaining it. They're regulating the tenants much better. So, I mean,
I got it, I agree, and I know CIVR and Hamilton Cove Real Estate, and I know that they do a great job, and they're not the property owners, they're managing it for somebody else. I get all that. And I know that we can't take away if somebody owns 5, 6, 7 properties and right now, and they have them as vacation rentals, we cannot take those away, but just rather, hopefully they would go down through attrition. But for me, I just feel it would be a goal to get to 1 property per person, per LLC, per entity, per whatever. To me, that just seems fair. And if you have a ton of money and you want to make a ton of money, there are plenty of other places, seriously, where you can make cha-ching. And I just want to protect our
I think
community.
if we put a cap on it, that will help on people having multiple coming in, and because they'd have to qualify for each one. No, I agree with you, but I think if we did the cap, it'd be more.
Well, a cap and that. I mean, a cap on the total amount and then a cap on the individual. I don't see why those have to be separate things. Just because we allow, say, 400, that'll be our number, you know? One person can buy all 400. I mean, I don't think that's, you know what I mean? I would like to see it just one. But we're all just talking.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think when people think about that, they just think of Hamilton Cove having people with multiple units, but there are people in Avalon that have multiple units.
Yeah, I'm not pointing out
CUPs.
Hamilton, yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was thinking more in town.
I was thinking more in town too, which I wanted to ask, within the cap, are we looking into doing caps within neighborhoods as well? It would just be an overall cap?
I think it'd be an overall cap. When we looked at neighborhoods and saturation, it was so difficult to figure out, you know, with our alleyways, if you're behind somebody adjacent, I mean, it just becomes so difficult, and we're not that big. You know, when we started dividing it up and you say, you know, the terraces, are they one section and that's a cap? It's a very, very small group compared to the flats that is a more defined group versus Hamilton Cove, which is separate and defined and has a much different makeup. So we're looking at an overall cap.
And that whole thing about surrounded by on more than 3 sides, was that just something we made up years ago?
No.
It wasn't
in
necessarily
writing?
made up, but it's there, yeah.
It's
Oh, it is in writing?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
in writing.
Okay. So when we get, like the letter we got today from, she puts her name on it, so Debbie Hunt talking about people here, and there, she's really not surrounded inappropriately with those folks?
She very well might be. You know, the saturation limits they were created as, you know, a factor for Planning Commission to consider over the years, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think while that's a factor, it got away from the city at some point. I mean, they're just, you know, you just don't see, it becomes very difficult, like I said, to try to do it as a percentage in a saturation versus an overall cap, which, you know, the city hasn't had a cap either, so.
Yeah.
I also did want to ask, and I don't think it was on there, so for folks that don't have a license, do we have the mechanisms on how we're going to enforce that?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what they have. If they have a CUP versus a TRL. A TRL, if you don't have they're much easier to revoke because you're just not in compliance with your annual transient rental license. But if you don't have, you know, if you have a CUP and you don't have a business license, you're not in compliance.
And
You
for
mean
folks
people that
nothing
don't have
at all.
anything at all?
Yeah.
Illegal
Yes.
rentals, yeah. We put in place the fine already for illegally renting, I believe, didn't we do that? Yeah.
Illegal renting,
Illegal
short-term
short-term rentals, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have a mechanism to pursue
Enforce that
that,
already.
and with host compliance, between host compliance and with what has been filed with finance, we can track those down.
And I was
If I
telling
may.
Dave earlier in a league update that we got out of a Senate committee with a bipartisan approval of putting more teeth in cities' ordinances of recouping fines. Right now, state law is kind of wiggly as to allowing cities, but this way it would give cities better strength in recouping. So,
Scott?
Yeah, on 2 issues on that by Councilmember Ponce, there was the genesis of that is there were a couple of law firms out there that were just existing by having $50 fines, but then charging the owners, you know, $30,000 in legal fees to enforce that. And so the state prohibited that practice. And now what's happening is we don't have enough code enforcement. So the state's going the other way to protect properties and neighbors by saying the city should be able to recover part of its fees. The other issue is, if you recall, that when we did the series of revocations about 4 years ago, that was for people that had not rented out their units and had not reported. And when we went through that process, the majority of the people decided to give up their transient occupancies, and the ones that didn't, we actually had a hearing before the council, and the council revoked most of those that came before the council, because our requirement is you have to rent it at least once a year, otherwise it's revoked. And so part of this process is you will be seeing a series of revocation hearings before the council over the next couple months, where we'll clear out some of these properties that have not been in use. That will then give us a clearer picture of the total usage of CUPs and TLPs available.
Thank you on that.
Just if anyone else is coming up, I just wanted to say thank you to city staff, by the way, because this has been a mountain of work, a mountain of hours to sort through. Being as in-depth as going back through recordings of old council and planning commission meetings, and then having to figure out just all of it has been a massive amount of work. So I'm hoping that people are seeing we're both equally understanding the need for short-term rental units and the need to just both enforce regulations everyone assumed we had already, that we didn't, but also to look at making sure that we're trying to make this as fair of a process as possible. So there's a few people that I would love to hear from if you guys have any other input on any of this, if we're heading in the right direction, if we're way off base, we got some letters from a number of homeowners. I think some of them assumed we were just gonna stop doing everything altogether completely. So I'm hoping you can see that we're not doing that. But just curious if anyone else has anything else to say or share.
Karina Vosniak, Catalina Island Vacation Rentals, reside at 300 Marilla. I have a couple of points. We manage 150 of those 260 TRLs, CUPs, manage about 6,000 reservations a year. So we have a little bit of input and ideas of how to deal with unruly guests, how to have processes in place and systems that do work efficiently and give us the possibility of proving that we do our job as it's intended. I think my biggest question here is, what guarantee do we have that short-term vacation rentals are affordable housing, that could become affordable housing? It's been a year and a half, right, of the moratorium being in place, and the 12 that have been on the list have not dropped from the list. They haven't decided to go year-round. So I think the biggest problem with when you're considering a cap is that I don't believe that these short-term rentals are going to become affordable housing. Also, we have to define what affordable housing is in Avalon. We all live here, and we know that affordable housing probably, it's not quite as affordable as we think it would become. Secondly, I know we talk a lot about people that come and destroy the community feel that we have, the close-knit, and they're unruly and they're loud and maybe at times over-occupy, and weeding them out, it's certainly what we have as a goal in mind. But is there data from the police department that shows how many of the calls that they receive come from vacation rentals versus, residences that are occupied year-round, and bars and restaurants and et cetera, right? It's an accumulation of things, and it's easy to point at the vacation rental, but we don't know until we look at what the police department would have to show us. And they come here every week, so I think that it would be important for us to get some sort of a percentage of what comes from vacationers versus what comes from people staying in hotels or day trippers or carnival cruise, visitors. It's a mix of everything. And going back into the affordable housing situation, we're talking of increasing fees. If we increase the fees, so we're determining that vacation rentals use more water and waste and sewage and et cetera.
there is data in the industry that actually suggests the opposite. A full-time resident does use more than someone that rents. The average for us is about 150 book nights out of 365. So if you get these fees increased in the form of a business license, say you go to $1,000, you'll have to put that into enforcement, but what fund could that go into affordability of the housing? Probably not much. So our suggestion is, why don't you have a 1% increase in TOT or whatever number, this is an example, that would be designated strictly for housing, for building, for using land that may be, whether donated or purchased, and building with that fund that would generate more income versus just increasing fees up on fees up on fees. And then in the end, none of it can, I think even legally, can all go into affordable housing. And the enforcement, I do have a question on that. How are we going to enforce the rest that we don't manage, myself and Bart and the other few people that are in town, with the in-person check-in process? It's nice to have it, but I'm very curious to know that now we see the data, there's more than half that are now managed by anyone that lives in Avalon. How is that going to proceed? How is that, and if they're not enforced, and what's next? And lastly, we're talking about properties that only rent 5 nights of the year, and they certainly maintain their permits because whatever reasons they have, but they pay a very minimal TOT tax. So are we going to update that to what we believe that the average daily night is? Because right now they pay $12 a night times 3. We know that there's no rentals for $100 in town, or not to my knowledge. So are we going to increase that to where at least the city makes a bit more money for properties that are having a permit, especially if you're going to cap? You're capping, that property doesn't produce anything for anyone. So if we're looking from producing for a housekeeper, for a visitor that comes and eats in a restaurant and, books an activity, like they bring revenue to the city, to everyone. What do we do with the ones that don't? They just pay a minimal fee, they maintain their license, and then you're capping out properties that could be profitable, that could build up this fund that could go then into strictly affordable housing. Because I still am not convinced of any data that can prove otherwise that vacation rentals are going to become affordable housing.
I tend to agree with you. The one thing you said I thought that was interesting is that increasing TOT by 1% or something. That's kind of an interesting concept.
We've discussed that internally. And there's a number of reasons, we've somewhat steered away from that because, it would just apply, I presume it would just apply, or the request would be it just applies to the short-term rentals versus across the board TOT because,
not the hotels.
Or does it apply to the hotels too? Because if you do that, then you're still not, in my opinion, you still have to address the short-term rentals, which are different than the hotels because many of the hotels are required to address their employee housing already based upon the number of staff they have because it's already considered. Right. I just want to say, I would agree with everything that you just said. Those are all these things we've considered, and I'm also of the opinion that simply telling somebody you cannot short-term rent this property does not turn it into a long-term. There's no indication of that. We understand that.
I have a little bit of concern with pricing them, the units that have the permit, and everyone's just going to run in, get a permit, and just never use it, and then just becomes this thing that's, it becomes this possessed title you have with your property that you then sell it, which defeats the purpose of what they're intended to do, right?
Right.
So.
And that's where we're saying, and the city attorney said, but it's the cost of doing administration, and we can't say that's worth.
Yeah.
A couple of years back, I thought, okay, if they don't use it, just let them pay like if they're going to reapply again for it for $3,200 or whatever it is. But I remember Mr. Glass didn't like that idea years ago.
I think affordable housing should come with, rent control, and there's things that cities in LA County do, not just you can rent maybe one day. 20 years from now, you'll go year-round and you will be affordable. So
I know what you're saying.
You.
Appreciate your comments.
I just want to say, the city is absolutely committed to increasing available affordable housing for long-term rent. We are going down that path, and the reason for that is that we're doing it so aggressively is because I don't think we can create any market push that's going to force property owners to do what we want them to do. They're going to do what they want to do with their property, and that's their right. And I think the reason, to say these 12 or the people that are currently on the list haven't done anything or haven't put their property up for long-term rental, it's because right now we're in a gray area, right? The moratorium is going to end, and they're waiting to see what happens. We have not established definitive rules going forward, so they're holding off to wait to see what happens. So they're not going to put their property up long term while they're waiting to see what happens.
No, because then they wouldn't be able to take them they wouldn't be able to kick them out to even to get one.
Right.
Well,
But also, I would just kind of like to share my idea of what too many vacation rentals and taking away affordable housing. So it's not, people buy houses and then we force them to rent it out full-time year-round. It's like what Jordan said, is that the license, the CUP, whatever, it drives the price of the house up. Oh, thank you, that was bugging me too. It drives it up by $50,000 to $100,000. So then the next time it's more, and then the next time it's more, and that's what's been increasing the prices. So if we make it so that we eventually, again, attrition, it's going to take a while for this to come down. But if we make it so that it's not so slam dunk like it has been in the past, it's like every single person that applied for a vacation rental permit got it. So if we make it so that it's not such a slam dunk, so that there's a little more hoops, there's a little more control that we have over our own community, eventually those houses are going to come back down a little bit, and people like me, who's lived here for 30 years, just might be able to buy a house at some point. I've always been just out of reach of that. And I think that the licenses, the CUPs, and the TRLs have added value to those homes, and that's why I can't afford to buy one. I'm not expecting someone to buy a house and rent it to me full-time year-round, swear to God. I don't think anyone in this town is expecting that. But, I think that's what we're talking about with oversaturation of vacation rentals and affordable housing. That's just me.
And Mr. Lake?
Jordan Lake, 311 Catalina Avenue. I'm also the broker owner of Catalina Realtors, so I deal with property sales and all of this a lot. I've shown Mary a lot of houses. Like she said, she hasn't found one that fits the exact one that she wants. But I want to just talk a little bit about, you guys have kind of accomplished that with making it a one-time transfer. It just takes time. And I applaud the efforts that everyone has made with this whole process, because this is a lot of great information. I do have one question. If the conditional use permit, if the long-term tenant in it is the owner, that would be one thing. Another thing that, I'd like to know the answer to that. Another thing that I wanted to ask is, I'm going to get off track here a little bit. Might take me a second to compose my thoughts.
I want you to go, just real quick, I want you to go back to that long-term tenant.
Let me just think about my area. I own 311 Catalina Avenue. There are a lot of conditional use permits or rentals in the area. And there's also a lot of vacant houses. So in my experience, I feel like there's actually more vacant houses that the people use some time of the year than there is the short-term rentals. I generally like the renters coming and going. One, if you don't like them, they're gone after a few days. Two, they're people to talk to. They're from other places in the world that you make friends with. That's all, just my experience. Now, I've also seen the other brokers in town that live here and live and breathe it every day. I don't think there's anything that gives us more joy than representing a local buyer buying a local property. But we can't discriminate, and we love that when that happens, but you have to deal with who comes to you, and that's what we facilitate. And I don't know how the city would regulate a person buying multiple units and running them as a business. There's also businesses that buy multiple properties to have them as employee housing, which they do that because they have to house their employees to support the infrastructure of the town. So there's, you know, I've got a lot, I think about this all the time. I talk about this all the time. I've got a lot of information about it. I can't compose it all right now. I think you guys are on a good track on a lot of this stuff, and you have accomplished a lot of it with the one-time transfer. But what you've also done with that is made that one-time transfer increasingly more valuable. And neighbors that have a property that, you know, has a one-time transfer, as they slowly go away, which they will through attrition, like you say, now that value is going to go up and up and up and up. And I know that was never supposed to be part of the situation, but it will kind of happen. But I'm also seeing properties that used to sell right away that were eligible for 1031 exchanges now go down in value. And, you know, sometimes you show people property that doesn't check their box. I mean, there are properties that I have shown people that they could afford, but it wasn't their dream house. It didn't have an ocean view. It didn't have, you know, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing enough, or it wasn't the one that their family member wanted to partner with them on, or whatever it was. But there are local people that have bought properties as their starter home, and that's something that brokers like us can also educate. You don't have to buy the dream home. You can buy the starter home and then sell it to buy the dream home someday, but you're building equity and stuff like that. But again, I feel like I'm a little off track on that. There's probably more that I'd like to say on this topic. The problem is there's not enough long-term housing. And in my opinion, the answer is to build. And you're trying to find ways to get funding to build. But without building, because it's like you say, the short-term housing, if you own this property that you just bought for $1,300 a square foot, you're not going to rent it for $1,500 a month. It's just that doesn't solve the problem. You want to come here for 1 to 2 months a year. It's not, you know, and you can't do that with a long-term renter because they're in there. Hey, you know, they've tried that. Hey, 6 months of the year, you know, we'll do a short-term rental, 6 months of the year, we'll do a long-term rental, 1 month a year, I'm going to dog ear it for myself and come over. That doesn't, you know, there's a lot of vacant properties. The short-term rentals, I don't feel are the problem. I feel like the lack of available housing is the problem. And even like, I mean, I love the hospital. I love the staff of the hospital. They rent a lot of units in this town. They pay a lot of money for those units, which I feel drives up the cost of the rentals. So when they build their hospital, which we're all hoping will happen, and build their housing for their employees, that will free up housing. If we built long-term housing, other rentals would be able to move into those rentals, and those would be more rentals. That's what solves this problem. And the cap is great, but you're kind of creating the same problem where you say, get rid of the blue sticker that's on the golf cart so we can get rid of the CUP that rents it for 3 days a year, because now there's a cap and you got to rent it. So now you got to rent your property a whole bunch. And you go, well, it was just sitting there quietly, you know, paying its small fee to, you know, keep its conditional use permit value, you know, because now it is a value because you made it a one-time transfer. Before it transferred every time, didn't have to worry about it. Now, and as time goes on, and what I'm seeing, this is another thing I wanted to bring up. You have a property that has had the one-time transfer. They have the rest of the year booked out, but they decide to sell because they don't want to live here anymore for whatever reason. They want to take their property and 1031 it to Tahoe, Mammoth, Big Bear, whatever. Now that property sells, all those reservations are gone because you can't transfer them to the new owner because the license doesn't transfer again. So now all those reservations are gone, which is fine. You know, that buyer may not even care. I mean, there's a property right now that the new owner doesn't plan to rent it out, and it was a rental. That's great. But you have to look at that too. We're having some problems with transferability once the one-time transfer is gone because the reservations don't transfer with it. So that affects Karina. She has to relocate all those people. I mean, there's stuff like that, but
I mean, but you don't think the owner's aware of that and doesn't have any moral responsibility to make it right and say, okay, then I can't do it till this is over?
No, I mean, to a degree, yes, and you can stop taking the reservations. I mean,
Right.
that's valid.
Yeah.
It's just something that I think needs to be looked at
Right.
because it's something that comes up.
That
is
happens a
problem.
lot?
We've only had a few properties, go from going to the one-time transfer to being sold again. Most people are buying them and just keeping them.
That's going to start happening.
But
more
it's
is
going
what
to
you're
start
saying,
happening
so
more
there
and
should be a
more.
solution there.
It is going to
Okay,
start
that's fair.
happening more and more. And that's what I felt like when you did the change of the municipal code in February of 2021, you really changed everything. It just takes time for that to take effect. And you're going, it's not going fast enough. And then you're saying, well, let's do this and let's do this. And we've done the moratorium. Now we're going to do a cap. And all this is because we're not taking the time to just let that take its course. Because it will. I've seen it. I've seen property values go down of ones that don't transfer and desirability. And I don't think that was the goal, but that is happening, And what that does is it makes a property that was eligible for 1031 exchanges of people that wanted to, buy a property somewhere else.
I have a question.
Yes.
What percentage of your people are cash buyers?
I would say most are either majority cash down or all cash buyers that I deal with. I do have a property right now that they're putting 20% down and, getting a loan for it. There is some.
And what are the interest rates right now?
Interest rates, that's relative, very huge variable, depends on your debt to income ratio. That's a lender question, but
Right.
average 30-year fixed right now, call it 7%.
Yeah.
But what people don't remember is, years and years and years ago, they were 19, 20% for interest, but we got to see the days of under 3% for a 30-year fix. So now everybody's a little bit
interesting.
Biased.
One here, thank you very much.
Do any of you have any questions for me as somebody who lives and breathes this every day?
I think my assumption when we changed the CUP to a TRL would be that it would actually take a couple generations to see changes.
You've seen it already.
I did, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I don't think I thought, honestly, because most of the majority of home ownership tend to have families that will take over the property, whether it's through a trust or not, or even through a sale to a child or not. But I assumed it would literally take at least 20 to 40 years to start seeing some of those changes. So your point about the fact that it actually has made some of it more valuable because of that for that first exchange is, I would expect that would happen too. But yeah, that's interesting that you're already seeing the attrition happen now as opposed to, 10, 20, even 40 years from now.
Yeah.
I assumed it would be
it's going to
longer.
make the people that don't have the one-time transfer
Right.
less likely to sell, so they
Right.
they'll hold on to the property and keep renting it as a vacation rental. Whereas before, if you kind of had the option of renting it or not renting it, you could go either way. But now you're kind of forcing them into their little
space,
channels.
But the renting, they're forcing them to rent is so minimal. $250? Come on.
No, I don't have a problem with
yeah.
Oh, okay.
The question I think was coming up too of if we're doing transient rental licenses, do we look at that 2-year requirement? Could people go back and forth between being a long-term rental and a vacation rental if they had those?
Right.
Which I would be interested in kind of looking at too.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, you're going to get an opportunity to come to another meeting because this will go to the planning commission.
Yeah, this is definitely not the last meeting on any of this.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, that was my little bit of 2 cents. Yeah.
I agree that it's our responsibility to do affordable housing. Our issue is land and the money to do it.
Sure.
And we're looking at this as being one of the abilities of funding affordable housing and when I say affordable housing, I'm saying workforce housing, because there's a ton of people here in this town that live together in apartments just so they can afford to go to work.
Yeah.
And I was telling Dave this morning, my other thing is, because a lot of these letters talk about how I can't afford this property if I can't rent it out. That is not the city's responsibility. The city gives you the ability to rent your property. It is not the city's responsibility to make sure that you're going to get money off of that property.
Sure.
So that one argument really drives me crazy when I get that, because that's not our responsibility. We give you the ability to do it. It's your responsibility to make the money. If you can't afford that property, then you shouldn't be buying the property. That's,
right.
yes.
But I mean, if they buy the property and they want to short-term rent it to help offset their expenses, which is usually the reason why they do it,
Yeah.
then the question is, if it doesn't rent enough, if they're not able to rent it that way, what happens to that property? Will it automatically become a short-term rental? I mean, a long-term rental that's affordable? Not necessarily.
No, I wouldn't
It
think
might
so,
just go
yeah.
for
But,
sale.
but once again, that's not our responsibility.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're giving somebody the ability to do this. We're giving them the permit to do this.
License.
Yeah, but it's not our responsibility that you're going to be able to make it all pan out.
Right. I had another question. Are conditional use permits apparent to the land? I mean, can you revoke them? Or do they run with the land? Because I mean, these grandfathered ones that...
The answer is yes to both. I mean, you can revoke them and they run with the land. I mean, if you're not in compliance with the requirements, it can be subject to revocation, but they run with the land.
Right.
Property.
But
yeah.
licenses are much easier to revoke, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the point, part of the point of why you guys did what you did.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have comments or questions? I think we're good. And this will at some point go to the Planning Commission for further discussion.
We're,
So-
the-
You need, yeah.
And what other comments do you all want to make? I'm sorry.
But wait a sec, I wanted to clarify the 12. What were you saying? It's just going to go to Planning Commission and you're just going to say yes to all of those, or what's going on there?
No,
Okay.
what I was saying is we have to address those, and we have to address those as part of what we're going to do with the moratorium. So
Okay.
we would have to bring that back and,
Okay.
yeah.
Those 12 are considered whatever the landscape is after the council adopts a new ordinance regarding transient occupancies. So until their moratorium expires and there's an ordinance in place, nothing happens with those. And then whatever you adopt, those 12 have to go by the new rules, whatever those are.
Got it. Okay, thank
Okay, cool, thank you.
So I have a question. You talked about the 12. Some of them put their name on a list after the moratorium. So what's going to keep everybody from running in tomorrow and putting their name in? Nothing?
They've been doing it. That's what I've been saying. I mean, the reality of it is we averaged about 6 a year. So 2 years, we have 12. That's what it's been since
Oh, gotcha. Okay, great, thank
the
you.
last 15 years.
It's
That's what
different than the
Vehicles,
Okay, thanks.
Just a little.
All right. Any further comments or questions?
The only thing I wanted to bring up is people that buy properties
Wait,
out here.
to the mic, Mark, please.
Jordan's a lot taller, sorry, Jordan. People that buy properties out here generally buy them to use them. When they're not using them, the city is collecting 12.5% when they do vacation rental them. I understand you don't want all the properties to be vacation rentals. I think the market dictates what will happen. There'll be so many vacation rentals, they'll go up, they'll go down. That's kind of gone that way for years. If we've got 2,100 total housing units right now, we have 373 vacation rentals, we've got about 17% of our housing stock in vacation rentals. In just the last few years since we implemented the CUP change to licenses, there's about 8% that has changed to be licenses that are not vacation rentals. Attrition, like they say, will take care of some of those. I think it's important to look at the number you have now. We're inflating two different issues. One is year-round housing. These are not going to be year-round housing. I mean, I've done this for 38 years on this island. No one's going to change one of these to year-round housing because they want to use it. That's why they bought the place. When we implemented the change, I was on the Planning Commission at the time, and I was one who brought it up that said, why don't we say you can only have one transfer? And I agree with Jordan in some respects that it does make it a little more valuable, but the market already realizes that it's a one-time transfer. So it's not like I'm going to give you an extra $150,000 knowing that, hey, when you buy it, you know you can't do the same thing. So it's there. There's some more value to it. I just think what if we said, any new CUPs you have over 375 and you say the limit's 450, all that money goes to building new housing. Let the city do the job they say that you guys are saying is your responsibility to do. There's your money to do it. Raise it another 1% in bed taxes, again, is just passing it along to the consumer that comes over here. When you look at what it comes to this island, it's expensive. It's a total, I mean, this is not Hawaii, this is Catalina. I think we would be better off saying, okay, after so many of these CUPs, and we say the number's 375, 380, and you're going to go to a certain number, can you make an ordinance that the rest of those CUPs that bring in money, it goes into a fund? It doesn't go to the general fund for you guys to spend. It goes just for housing, year-round housing. Now you have a source of income, because as it is right now, we don't have a source of income for this year-round housing that we'd all like to see. And all of us, I own a business here, I have no employees. Very hard to find an employee right now. Half of it's housing, half of it's people don't want to work for 25 bucks an hour. It's crazy. But I think if we looked at how else we could raise the money to doing it with maybe the addition of what you're going to allow in short-term rentals, maybe that'll help solve some of the year-round housing problem. And then when we have it, we can't let people move into it that have lived here for 2 or 3 years. You've got to make it for the people that have been here for 10 or 15 years, because otherwise we're just moving more people from the mainland to compete against all of us for year-round housing. That's all.
2 great points. Thank you. Okay. So, I think what we say is we like the recommendations that the staff made. I think they put a lot of thought into that. And then with some of the comments, you'll take some of this back and massage it. And
Yeah, so I think the plan will be, we'll get some input from Planning Commission from their next meeting as far as regulations, and then we'll come back with a proposal to council to get ourselves to a point where we can lift the moratorium and impose the direction we're going forward.
Okay.
But, we wanted everybody to start thinking about this and start thinking about these issues, so that's good.
Are you two going, or did you have something else to say? Pat, Troy?
They're heading out.
Did you have something else you want to say? Okay, all right. Okay.
I think one thing I just wanted to say was if to start with this, only because I kind of want to just keep this, once things are in place, if we could do an annual review to start and then hopefully move it to a 2-year review after that.
No, I agree.
Just so that we're not, if there's, and of course, if anyone has concerns, we can always bring them up sooner than that. But yeah, again,
exactly.
A phenomenal amount of work, a phenomenal amount of input. And I think, kind of understanding the problem, hopefully people are seeing, we're, again, trying to be fair and reasonable and find a middle ground that works, hopefully, for everybody. So.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Good night, Tony. Meeting adjourned.
Tony.
Okay.